The prophecy says that a child with the same hair color as the saint will become a princess. He or she will be born special. This man will bring peace and tranquility to the empire, intending to keep everyone healthy and prosperous. The saint was also someone who was special. She healed thousands of people, and with just one word, she stopped a bloody war that had lasted for years. The Tsar proclaimed her the savior and protector of the empire. She knew that someone would definitely inherit her abilities. The main character is called Ursia Pizanthria. She is the girl who is the heiress and princess to maintain balance. The first saint who helped the emperor build the empire had pink hair. Pink was the main color in the temple. Over time, a prophecy appeared in the castle, shining brightly, urging others to open it and read its contents. All people, even those who were not endowed with powers, understood its meaning. It was easy, but no one thought that such a thing could be possible. The emperor did not understand what he should do. Having called a meeting, he looked at the people and tried to figure out the girl with pink hair. It seems that such a person did not even exist in the empire, despite the fact that the book clearly stated that he would appear. More and more rumors began to spread throughout the castle, and then also a million questions about what to do. Eventually, a main character emerged who would fit the description of what was said in the prophecy. Her hair was the main sign. The parents did not immediately understand what to make of such a mysterious appearance, but over time they simply came to terms with it as it was. Unlike his parents, the child had pink hair that stood out brightly. The shade made it clear that a saint was involved. The baby grew up healthy, but as soon as she turned 5, she was already assigned to the royal throne, predicting the future. People around prayed to the girl, saying that she would become the next saint, or at least the new empress to sit on the throne. On top of all this, the girl was the duke's daughter. She was the kind of child who was active and always behaved as expected. Because of the prophecy and rumors, naturally, everyone around wanted to get closer to the little girl, who was unaware of her importance. Ursia grew up as a sociable and talkative child. She talked so much with others that it seemed her mouth could no longer open due to fatigue. The girl was taken to the imperial citadel to test her abilities and then sent further up the career ladder. However, everything was much better than it seemed at first glance. The girl understood that it would be difficult, but she coped with everything. Sadness enveloped her body, but she knew she couldn't allow herself to cry, even if the tears were ready to flow out. Everything became easier and better because there was one special inhabitant in the castle. He was friendly and loving, but remained in need of friends. The little girl was happy with this outcome, but she was still worried because she lived in a citadel far from her home and family. The prince became the only ray of light that brought joy into the princess's life. She was ready to do anything for him. Perhaps it was because of her friend that the girl took her studies seriously. She understood that this was something that would be needed in the future and something that could not be neglected. At such a young age, it was quite difficult for the girl to prepare for something so responsible. She did not sleep at night, just to get everything done. Often, right in the middle of the night, blood would flow from the beauty's nose, dripping in scarlet drops onto the pages of the textbook. Wiping her nose, the girl was distracted from her task for only a few seconds to refocus. She had to become a princess. Sometimes Ursia wanted to leave her current life. She felt tired of the constant flow of people and tasks. The heroine really couldn't stand such pressure any longer, but she couldn't let down her only friend, who was always there. Next to the prince, peasantry felt the happiest, which was noticeable to everyone around, without any exceptions. Staying close to the brunette, the girl understood that she could move on and continue to fight for happiness, but everything changed dramatically. It was as if they had decided to play a joke on the girl, although the joke was not funny or cheerful at all. The man who came from the temple turned the world upside down. The prophecy magically changed. Not understanding how this happened, the girl asks why it changed, to which she does not immediately receive an answer to her question. Trying to hold back tears and nervousness, the heroine tries to refute what happened to her. It seemed that the man was just joking. Leaning tiredly on his hand, the monk assures that everything will be fine, but even he does not know what to say, because everything happened so unexpectedly. The blonde, frozen, looks at the interlocutor who sits opposite her. Her eyes express only the pain that has accumulated over the past few hours. Everything she had been told was an impossible untruth, which is what it was. She didn't want to believe what had just been said. because life had only just begun to get better. Even if that was the case, the prince would never abandon his girlfriend and lover, no matter what. That was the conviction that formed in his head. Rising from her chair and throwing open the door, Her Highness quickly runs out into the street, slamming the doors behind her to disappear. As she walked down the corridor, the girl tried to think of only one thing. She hoped that the young man would never abandon his girlfriend. Already almost at her office, the princess stops. She hears a voice calling her closer to it. The girl instantly became lit up with light, and a stupid smile appeared on her face, which could not be caused by anyone except her lover. The prince stands at the other end of the corridor, on the stairs that lead up. He looks at the girl, saying that he would like to break off the engagement before it is too late. Amber eyes gleam dangerously somewhere in the darkness. A quiet voice with a hint of disappointment asks the man what the reason is. Addressing His Majesty, the girl tries to come as close as possible, but the guy seemed to not want to make any contact. Folding his arms across his chest, the man says in a menacing voice that he is sorry. This is of course not true, because joy can be read in his eyes. The head hangs down because there is no more strength to move forward. It is hard to believe that the couple can no longer be together, because she hoped for this until the very end. The girl loved the guy, but now all she could do was nervously squeeze her wrist with her hand so as not to start screaming, releasing her anger. Memories of the prince smiling welcomingly and extending his hand to his new girlfriend come to mind. The young man was incredibly gentle then, trying to let the princess get used to the new realities of her life. She was new to the castle. The girl tries to make the prince remember how things used to be. With some effort, they can restore everything and make it so that they can be together. The prince seems to be completely emotionless. He stands in the same place, frowning. Not intending to make contact, he turns away. The heroine's eyes show despair. Her only loved one almost disowns her, forcing her to become someone else. The words that the empress so feared to hear were spoken. The couple is no longer bound by the prophecy. What happened is beyond any possible bounds. There is no choice anyway, so the heroine, sighing heavily, clutches her dress with her hands. Ursia understands perfectly well that she must try to preserve at least the remains of the prophecy. They were together for 18 years, and the young man just leaves his future wife like that. Virgo becomes some kind of trash that is just thrown away. She quietly agrees to what she is told because she is not going to hold on to the past. Not daring to utter another word, she turns around abruptly only to leave the room as quickly as possible. It was on this note that the beautiful relationship between the lovers ended. There was only 1 month left before the wedding. It was morning outside, but despite the fact that the sun was shining brightly, the heroine could not open her eyes and get out of bed. It became easier with time. Opening her eyes, the girl looks around. Complete silence is now a permanent guest in the room. Getting out of bed, the girl realizes that she is never around. Everything became clear with the groom yesterday, but today even her faithful servant abandoned her. Hands reach for the crown, which lies on the nightstand next to the bed. The stone seems not as bright as before, as if trying to remind of what happened. A sad look examines the thing. The girl will no longer need it, because the prophecy will never change back. Sitting down on a chair near the table, the beauty examines the tiara, which is pushed aside. All that remains is to regret the past. Behind the door, the sounds and voices of security are heard, asking someone not to enter the room without permission. Wiping away tears, the maiden gets up to go outside. The door swings open before Ursia can even make it into the hallway, which seems too ignorant. Throwing on a robe that was more suited to a beautiful look, the blonde follows forward, trying to understand what is going on there. A short figure appears in the passage. The shadows that skillfully fall on the body make it impossible to see the face. The middle-aged girl smiles a not quite welcoming smile, pretending to be pleased to meet you. Her hair is also pink. It seems that every girl dreams of becoming a princess. This cannot be changed because it has been this way since time immemorial. Still smiling, the girl's eyes sparkle. She greets the heroine again in order to bring her out of her trance. The girl introduces herself as Navia Lurtella. According to her, she is the one who must fulfill the prophecy of the saint who helped the emperor. The princess frowns as she looks at the new arrival. It is the daughter of the Marquis of Lurtella, but that doesn't make any sense. Realizing that the girl has frozen, the girl waves her hand to attract her interlocutor's attention. She calls her by name. Lady Peasantry adjusts her hair, saying that she is here but does not remember giving permission to enter the chambers. The little girl looks around in surprise. She doesn't look like someone who regrets anything. Navia looks around with interest and then heads towards the table, completely ignoring questions about what she needs there. Picking up the tiara, which seems too light, the girl, as if nothing had happened, says that she came to look around. She will now live here. Picking up the item, Lurtella places it on her head in order to feel her strength, or how everything will go further. Smiling, the little girl seemed to glow with joy. She asked if such a gift from the Emperor suited her. The heroine cannot come to terms with the fact that her place will be taken by some unbearable brat who doesn't even know what she needs to do and how exactly. The guard who burst into the room orders the maiden to leave the room. She is not allowed to enter here, but she will become a princess very soon. Deciding it was time to intervene, Ursia moves closer to the miss, calling out to her to get her attention. Pretending that she doesn't understand anything, the blonde mockingly asks what's wrong. She thought that no one would do anything to her. The prophecy has indeed changed, so very soon the room will become hers. But until that moment comes, it turns out that the lady has entered someone else's territory completely illegally. This act is considered a sin, so a punishment can be devised. Trying to object, Lurtella steps back. She repeats once again that the prophecy speaks about her, which means that very soon she will become a princess. Tired of such unbearable behavior, the girl sighs heavily to finally teach the girl some sense. The girl is only the daughter of a marquis, while Sia is still a full-fledged princess. With these words, it becomes clearer. The girl blinked, frozen. She didn't know that someone would answer her in such a tone when she considered herself the best. The maiden is still the prince's fiancée and also the mistress of the citadel. The emperor himself decided that everything will remain as it is for now, and she is still a nobody here. Freezing, the blonde tries to find the right words. Not expecting the rebuff that she was given for the first time in her life, the heroine was scared. Perhaps it is because the young lady is the daughter of an oracle. She considers herself superior to the emperor himself, which seems unforgivable. Jumping to the side, the maiden screams in fear that this is all nonsense. She cannot allow this to happen. The crown falls with a loud thud onto the tiles, hitting the hard ground and almost breaking. The gold crumbles around the edges. Pointing her finger at the girl, Pisanthria asks the guards to seize Navia. They must tie her hand and foot, and then give her back to the marquise. The maids who were crowded near the entrance to the room began to whisper among themselves. Virgo doesn't regret anything, because she thinks that this will be a pretty normal punishment for Navia breaking into the princess's bedroom. The guards nod in agreement as they approach the girl, who is trying to resist with all her might. She screams that this is her room. The heroine is led out of the room, while the screams do not subside. She complains about the treatment, which is so terrible. The blonde looks menacingly into the distance. It's hard not to understand that the truth is that soon she will become a nobody, but not at the moment. Everything is not so bad. Walking back into the room, the girl carefully sits down on one of the sofas next to the window in order to rest. It is too stupid of His Majesty to replace Ursia with some foolish child. She will not be able to become like the princess. Not knowing what to do next, the maiden lowers her face into her palms. She should think about her plan for the next few days. We need to make the people in the castle pay for everything they have already done and are going to do in the future. A new day meant that it was time for the heroine to go about her usual business in the obligatory chosen outfit. Passing by one of the columns, the Empress hears voices that say that God has turned away from her. Two middle-aged girls discuss the girl. They had no other explanation for why the prophecy had changed. No one knows what will happen to the Pisantria family. Their daughter has been abandoned by God, but since she is a princess, she will most likely be married to another king. The interlocutor, laughing, says that no one needs the maiden anymore. There is no limit to the indignation because no one dares to say such a thing. Stepping forward, the heroine looks menacingly at the girls. She asks them to repeat what they just said. The girls try to move as far away as possible to avoid the princess's wrath. All that remains is to regret what was said. Bowing their heads down and almost falling to their knees, the beauties ask for forgiveness because, according to them, they are very, very sorry that this happened. The blonde assures that they will never ever hear anything like that from her again. The girl snorts, noting the truth of some of the words. She is no longer the crown princess, which makes it clear how hopeless the situation is. Those standing opposite continue to bow fervently so that they will be forgiven as soon as possible and released to their chambers. A voice from behind calls out to Her Highness and then asks what happened there. The man is unmistakable. The maid of honor was the one who arrived immediately, as soon as she sensed something was wrong with the girls who had managed to say stupid things. The blue-haired woman's indifferent gaze switches to the former empress. Looking into the heroine's eyes, she tries to convey all the pain that has been accumulating somewhere inside her all this time. It seems that the heroine has become the same as everyone else. She stayed with the girl since childhood, but now she has turned away. A nervous laugh escapes her chest. Betrayal is always the worst thing that can happen, so the maiden turns to leave. The heroine had known those who said something like that for many years, but now everything was mercilessly collapsing. That's how it all ended, even if the maiden didn't want the people she loved so much to turn away from her. The guard obligingly opens the door to the main hall for the former mistress. So far, he is the only one who obeys. Entering inside, the heroine first looks around the room. She is not so interested in the prepared food. At the table sits the one who just yesterday gave up his beloved with a simple snap of his finger, despite everything that happened between them. Ursia sighs sadly. She can't believe that she can only meet the prince in the reception hall now. They are no longer a family, so bowing, the maiden asks if she has kept His Highness waiting. Only a little time had passed, so it wasn't the worst problem that happened. Inviting the princess to sit down, the man points to a free seat directly opposite him. There is already a cup of tea there. The maiden was so used to seeing the prince every day that she began to take it for granted. Now everything has changed. The heroine could never have predicted such a strange outcome for herself and the guy. As luck would have it, moments with memories that were too valuable for the girl pop up in her head. At first, the couple were just little children, but then over time, they grew up, but also continued to spend time together. She couldn't believe that it was all over just like that. She would never again feel the warmth of a guy's embrace that he gave her. The maiden wanted to say something. She learned that the position of the chief chamberlain in the castle had been inherited by the son of the former owner. The young man frowned and sighed. The girl seemed completely unconcerned about what had happened, judging by her reaction. Not understanding what they wanted from her, the blonde asks if they wanted her to protest. If tears solved anything, perhaps Sia would cry. It wasn't the best time to do it, so the maiden simply decided to save the rest of her pride. The guy's hand is clenched in hers, which is clearly visible. The heroine came here not only for the news. The other man was right. She certainly had something to say before leaving the reception room and walking off into the sunset. Looking somewhere into her cup of tea, Pisanthria asks when she should leave the imperial palace. The logical chain was not at all difficult to build. His Highness did not say anything, so most likely the prince will decide. Looking menacingly at the girl and lowering his voice, the young man asks if she really wants to leave. It seems he needs the heroine to stay here. Complete silence is what is needed to think. The girl slowly sips some more tea from her mug. Realizing that he won't get an answer, the brunette leaves the room, telling his friend that she can do whatever her heart desires. The contemptuous look should have gone to the guy who had already managed to leave, but remained alone with the hostess. Night has fallen outside, covering the sky with a dark blanket. The heroine stands in her room in front of a candlestick. The heroine collected a lot of useful notes, which, of course, she was going to give to the young man. In the end, she tried just for nothing. Memories came to mind of how 8 years ago, a girl was training with a sword somewhere in the backyard of a castle. Fatigue did not allow her to continue normally, so the girl stopped to catch her breath and start again. The boy, who was usually busy with other things, comes closer, calling out to Ursia, who immediately looks back. He asks her not to force herself if she can't. The emperor said that members of the imperial family must be able to stand up for themselves. Interrupting his friend, the boy says that he is a good knight who copes with battles better than with the state. The hand reaches out to the girl, who is still holding the wooden sword, in order to continue training. Taking the weapon, the young man asks if the princess will allow him to defend her and her honor. Then the blonde turned scarlet because she didn't even hope to ever receive such an offer. Looking down, the little girl thanks him. He is good at everything but still tries to cheer the girl up. They would go through life together, so the hero was confident that he would always be able to protect the heroine. Now everything that was once said seems like nonsense or a lie that was planned in advance as a not very good joke. By holding the pages up to the candles, the maiden allows them to consume the pages into the fire, which ignites almost instantly. Within seconds, there is almost nothing left of the sheets of notes. The text disappears behind the flames that consume it. The maiden is going to scatter the ashes that remain from everything that was. Approaching the open window, she releases them into the distance. Something in the distance catches the attention that had been occupied with something else all this time. Turning, the maiden looks forward. A bird flies forward under the moon, rapidly approaching the windowsill, hoping to make it in time. A skinny hand reaches forward to grab hold of a piece of paper tied to the animal's leg. The baby sits down on the finger that was extended forward. He moves his paws, waiting to be given food. Taking the note, which still contains text in dark ink, the heroine unfolds the piece of paper. The face immediately reflects joy and calm. The message was from a father who was probably nervous and worried about his daughter's future. Sinking down into the chair where the girl had been just a few minutes ago, she bows her head in anticipation. The door slowly opens, making it clear that, as usual, the wait was not very long. Smiling, the blonde waves her hand in greeting, as is appropriate in high society. They haven't seen each other for quite a long time. The man bows. His name is Ash, the same loyal servant of the Duke's family who was sent here without his father's knowledge. The guy raises his head, looking with his purple eyes straight into the soul in order to read what is there. The talk will be about the blade, so Ursia immediately invites the young man to go into the room and not stand in the passage. Standing almost next to the heroine's chair, the man says that he waited a very long time until he was finally called to his office. By dropping to one knee, the hero makes it clear that he is still loyal to his masters, no matter what. Extending his hand, the man calls out to Her Highness, as if hoping that she will agree immediately after the proposal. Taking the neat palm into his own, Ash gently kisses the back of it, trying to do it as quickly as possible. Raising his head, he looks into her eyes, asking if there is anything he can do to help since he has already been summoned to the imperial palace. Leaning closer to the man, the maiden says that she has one request. He will have to spread one rumor. The story is about Lady Lurtel, who the Empress still holds a grudge against. She didn't like the girl's behavior at all. As is known, the Marquis has neither money nor influence except for his title. Nothing will help him anymore, even if he tries to break through. The whole series of failures happened because a man 3 generations ago allowed his wife to use weak people to remain beautiful. Now the princess could play perfectly on what they were going to do. Ash had to help. First, we need to spread the rumor that Lurtel's daughter is kidnapping poor children. That will do for now, but eventually a second wave will be needed. By asking the servant's opinion, the maiden gets what she wanted to hear. Miss Navia was the one who first started such a war. The girl even said that the heroine is too wasteful because she manipulates the servants. This sounds more like childish babble. The man bows his head. He will not allow anyone to insult the girl, so he will do everything possible. Tears appear in the guy's eyes, which do not immediately become an understandable phenomenon for the heroine, who is watching this closely. The princess gets the gist of the show. The servant wants to be scolded for something, but he pretends to be offended. You have to do exactly what you're supposed to, otherwise others might suspect something is wrong with the guy's arrival. It's very convenient when you can cry whenever you want, so the lady lets go of Ash, from whom she expected nothing less. The sheet with the written plan is again near the candles, just like the others. Now everything will fall into place. The maiden will make you feel sorry for Navia because she stood in the way of the only princess of peasantry, making her feel bad. The morning, as usual, was too bright because the sun had set. A silver-haired man approaches the castle and stops to greet his enlightenment. The head bows as the boy talks about the latest news. The princess is at the center of a new scandal. Smiling, the young man notes that he cannot allow anything like this to happen because peasantry should belong only to him. The servant standing opposite tries to object, but he is not given the right to even utter a single word. Miss Lurtella, who is the new owner of the prophecy in the castle, is also involved in this incident. Bursting into laughter, the young man incredibly frightens the butler, who probably thought that he was not okay. It seemed that the young man had not missed anything, which meant that these were the princess's tricks that she used to remain the last one. Lady Pisanthria was certainly an interesting person. Some of her actions defied logic, but they certainly showed how beautiful she was. The guy was going to meet the lady right as planned. His to-do list was impeccable. An image of a beautiful girl pops into his head. He can't wait for the moment when they will be able to meet. The room is empty, as if no one had ever lived there. The girl stands in the middle of the room with a suitcase next to her. The princess had no desire to stay in the palace after what had happened. The decision was to return to her father. What belonged to the palace had to be left behind. The only snag was the wedding ring, which also belonged to someone else. Not daring to take on this task on her own, the beauty grabs the bell and rings to call the maid. The maid appears at the first call. She bows her head, asking what her highness needs. Looking at the woman, the maiden admits that she has never seen her. It seems that the prince has changed all the servants after the breakup. The girl calls out to the princess, to which she quickly apologizes. Lately, too many thoughts have been bothering her. Bringing a box wrapped in red velvet, Ursia asks the maid to deliver it directly to the prince. The door slams shut after the maiden leaves the chambers, and the heroine is once again left completely alone. Next, the girl has to get rid of some clothes that she absolutely doesn't need, so she turns to the closet. It's worth quickly choosing which dresses you can get rid of and which ones you can take with you. Sitting down on the bed where the clothes are already laid out, the beauty admits to herself that she wants to throw out everything that was bought with the prince. There is another knock at the door, interrupting Ursia from the activity she has been putting off for the second day. The young lady orders them to enter the chambers, and as soon as the door opens, she, of course, sees the same maid who had already entered earlier. Handing the box back, the girl relays the prince's words. He asked his wife to return the ring herself. It's obvious that the guy just decided to make fun of her, since he asks her to personally bring something that no longer belongs to Ursia. This ring was given to the couple when they were no more than 16 years old. At that time, it meant at least something. All I can remember in my head is how happy the girl was when she got what she wanted for so long. Chuckling, the empress realizes that she is ready to accept the rules of this game. She takes the box back. I am pulled out of my thoughts by the voice of a maid who, turning to her highness, asks if everything is all right with her. Looking at the brunette, the girl understands that she says this completely sincerely. She is scared and worried. The maiden is not allowed to ask such questions, but she could not help but do so. She is worried about the princess's condition. The blonde wasn't going to scold the maid just for asking a question, even if it offended her. There are terrible rumors about the daughter of the Marquis of Lurtel. According to the lady, it is even scary to imagine what will happen if she becomes the crown princess. Looking straight into his eyes but letting him finish his sentence, the girl asks what the maid's name is. The brunette freezes, clearly not expecting such a question. She looks straight at the lady, who seems quite confident. Bowing her head, the maiden hurries to answer as best she can. Her name is Azriel Portuba. This is the daughter of the Viscount of Portuba, who is also known in narrow circles, even for a princess. The girl can still be useful and do a good job, even if she seems incredibly scared now. Turning around, the empress comes out, where she is immediately met by several servants who bow their heads. The prince is informed that Her Highness Princess Peasantry has arrived to see him. She does not keep him waiting. The girl came, as the future emperor wanted. He probably called the beauty to mock her. Walking further, the girl stops somewhere near the tables. She lowers her head. Looking at the table, the beauty notices a vase in which beautiful flowers still stood. It was hard to believe that the bouquet had remained in the office. Once upon a time, Ursia herself had composed it from light flowers. It was a long time ago, but perhaps the prince simply threw away the old one and brought a similar one to replace the loss. Coming up from behind the chair, the man quietly asks if his ex-lover has come to return the ring to him. It seemed obvious why the princess had come. She would not have wanted to be in the office for any other reason. This is exactly what the maiden came for. Taking the box out of her pocket and holding it out to the side, she remains calm. The guy silently looks at the extended object that he is offered to accept. The girl was given what the young man was asking to return, the ring in person, and since that was his will, it was worth fulfilling. The man simply nods without saying anything. He quickly grabs the box and takes it from the princess's palm. It is good that the ring remains safe and sound. His Highness has nothing more to say, so the maiden is about to leave. The girl did not watch her movements, so she accidentally knocked over a vase of flowers. The thing flies rapidly towards the ground before colliding with it and breaking into a million tiny pieces. The blonde looks tiredly at what she has done. She is in no mood at all, so even the smallest thing is incredibly annoying. Lifting the hem of her dress so as not to stain anything, the heroine examines the puddle of water. The prince calls Xia, ordering her not to move as it could be dangerous. He grabs the lady's hand. Jumping aside, the lady reminds that they are no longer engaged, so being so close is prohibited. Turning away, the young man quickly moves away. The virgin, of course, is right as usual, because she only cares about her reputation and standards. Without turning back to look at her lover, the maiden says goodbye, saying that she is going to leave. The guy thought that the girl had no other activities, but it seems he was wrong, because she is constantly trying to go somewhere. In fact, the lady has a lot of things to do. She hasn't lived here for a long time, so it will be quite difficult to pack all her things. Turning sharply, the brunette asks his interlocutor the same thing she just said, as if not believing it. In a split second, the young man is again next to the blonde, who takes a step back to avoid being influenced. She understands what she is saying, but it is true that the heroine is going to leave. It is impossible to stay in a hated place. As she is about to leave, the girl is stopped again. A hand grabs her wrist to stop her acquaintance for a while. Pulling Ursia closer, the guy tries to start a conversation, but doesn't know where to start, seeing the menacing expression on her face. Lowering his head, the brunette asks what she will do next. He wants to ask for one favor. Looking straight into the eyes of the young man, the maiden asks him what it was that he wanted to say. It is clear from her that there is no joy in this. The guy asks for help sorting through a mountain of documents that has accumulated recently. The princess has been doing this all this time. Then, instead of insisting, the hero abruptly lets go of the heroine's hand so that she can move away. The brunette stutters and asks to forget about what he just said. It seems he really wants to run away. Turning away, he announces that nothing is needed, which means the heroine can finally be free. Virgo doesn't even bother to say anything or object. She turns around, nodding her head in agreement. Picking up the hem of her dress, the lady leaves the prince's chambers, hoping that she will be able to get to her room as quickly as possible. Going out into the corridor, the heroine looks around. She considered this castle her home, because she lived here almost from the age of 5. Understanding perfectly well that if she left, she would not be able to return here again, the girl was still ready to take such a step. There is complete silence in the office, which allows the girl to relax a little, leaning back in her chair. A sound behind the door attracts attention. Someone knocked only twice, which made it clear who was standing there. Allowing the maiden to enter, the heroine watches as a servant appears in the room and bows her head. Rising from her chair, the princess goes forward. The maid helpfully asks what they wanted from her. Turning her attention somewhere downwards, the brunette freezes with a splashing horror that fills her gaze. The maid is focused on the princess's ankle. There is dried blood there. There will be no scar, so there is nothing to worry about. Sitting back down on the chair and raising her leg up, the blonde asks to bandage her ankle. The brunette nods vigorously. She certainly knows how to do such simple manipulations, so she sits on her knees. Putting her knee under her leg, the girl takes the bandages in her hands and carefully begins to wrap the wounded area. The blonde, with her head bowed, looks boredly at what is happening, not showing any interest, just waiting for the procedure to end. The girl is almost finished, but decides to ask if the girl needs a doctor who could help her very well, to which she is refused. Instead of turning away again, the protagonist smiles to attract attention. The lady wanted to ask something. The maid's reaction was not long in coming because she only smiled. Laughing lightly so as not to arouse any suspicion, the girl asks if the maid knows how to keep her ears open. Virgo, on the contrary, looks at her intently, no longer showing the same interest in her interlocutor. The princess asks to tell more about the rumors about Lady Lurtel because everyone already knew. The maid says that she is not particularly interested in rumors, but a table with cookies and tea will definitely get people talking. The princess sits down on one of the sofas in the room, inviting the brunette to sit down opposite her and begin drinking tea. The maid hadn't heard much, but she knew for sure that the girl was kidnapping children from poor families. It had long been known to everyone that the Marquis loved to take blood baths. Taking a sip of tea, the blonde nods. She doesn't have to think about who did it because Ash did a great job, just like he promised. The thoughts are interrupted because the interlocutor asks why Her Highness is so worried about Lurthella. The brunette can't believe that such a person will become the new princess. Everyone around her, as one, believes that she is unworthy of such a title. The blonde nods. She had heard something similar, so she couldn't help but agree with the rumors. The future of the imperial family cannot help but worry the girl, who is well aware of what will happen to them all. Changing the subject, the beauty laughs lightly, suggesting that they talk about the maid instead of talking about Navia. Asking about Mr. Rubella, the girl asks if Azriel knows him, to which she says that he is her brother. The princess, of course, knows the guy a little, because he is the prince's assistant in the office. Smiling, the brunette seems to light up with new strength and joy. She is glad that her brother has such a fate, because they get along well. The man had to answer what it was like to be at odds with Ursia. It was all the prince's fault. It's evening outside, bringing the stars with it. Turning to the window, the lady notices a bird right on the windowsill. Perhaps it was another message from his father, but the bird did not look like anything familiar. Opening the window, the lady invites the bird inside, holding out her hand for it to land. Receiving the message, the maiden unfolds the letter in surprise, noticing that it is just a blank sheet of paper that has no meaning. There was nothing so important or secret in the message, but it still embarrassed the princess. The lady collected paper here, as well as everything else that ever fell into her hands. It had already become her new tradition. Bringing the sheet to the fire, the maiden notices text that begins to slowly appear almost instantly. The beauty froze and concentratedly examined what was written there, not immediately understanding why this happened. Clutching the paper, the heroine menacingly throws it aside. This trick was very clever and, of course, had significance. The heroine had never held anything heavier than a cup in her life, but now for some reason she was being accused of something that was not true. Neela swears on her name and the honor of the empire that her family will always take care of her people. You must believe the daughter of the oracle, not stupid rumors. Ash, who had just arrived with the letter, bowed obligingly as usual before reporting the situation. This is exactly how the new princess decided to fight the rumors. She simply had to dispel the untruth. Sighing, the blonde turns away. The little one didn't see any boundaries, so she acted as if she had already become a princess. The girl had no right to swear by the honor of the empire, so this gave a new reason for anger. The girl asks Ash for another favor. The man, of course, was going to do everything in the best possible way, so the lady simply went to her chambers. Receiving a piece of paper that arrived recently via messenger pigeon, the maiden carefully examines the contents. The girl didn't expect anything else from her father, but she was still peasantry, so she wasn't going to take her words back. A plan forms in her head. The heroine asks her father to somehow block the road because she needs to stay in the castle longer in order to gather more information about the Marquise's family. Everything is going as well as possible, and exactly according to plan again. The butler who arrived reports that everything went well, but due to the collapse, the trip will have to be postponed. Pretending that nothing is clear, the blonde blinks her eyes in surprise, asking what kind of collapse they are talking about. As it turned out, the only road leading to the duchy was simply blocked, preventing the carriage from passing. It seems unreal that this happened just like that, because the heroine asked her father to do this just a day ago. The maids standing outside listen attentively to the conversation, which has been going on for several dozen minutes. The handle is broken, so the door seems to open periodically on its own, allowing everyone to listen. In the morning, the heroine broke the pen to see how things would go. Absolutely nothing was supposed to interfere with her plan. Things were going as well as possible, so all that was left was to continue playing by the rules that the princess had set. Chuckling, the maiden assures that nothing terrible happened, but now she has absolutely no idea what to do with Lurthella. She lives in the castle and is now not the one who stayed with the Marquise. All that remains is to beware of what might happen to the other inhabitants of the castle. The girl ran to the princess and ordered her to leave the capital immediately. Nothing stops her from doing the same to the others. Clasping his hands behind his back so as not to say anything unnecessary, the man only agrees. Someone who can't even write can't lead an empire. Navia couldn't even defend her own state. The little girl has no money behind her because she is completely supported by the temple. She spends all her money on dresses and jewelry. The man starts shouting menacingly, saying that this is absolutely unforgivable. It's true. Someone like the Marquis's daughter doesn't know how to manage funds or help the temple when it needs something. The crown princess must behave a little differently. This won't do, and perhaps everyone around her will agree with it. The rumors spread even faster than the girl thought, because it all happened only a few days ago. The girl extends her hand to the one who has arrived and shakes it, as a sign that everything will be fine with both her and the empire. The blonde will always take care of her subordinates, so the butler assures her that he will always be on Ursia's side. The man assures that one word from the princess, and he will be ready to risk his life to stop Lurthella. His son will do the same. The man still remembers the very day when the blonde was brought to the castle for further training so that she would part in the prophecy. Now everything has changed. The heroine has grown and changed, but she remains the same kind and pure soul that you wanted to help, no matter what. Due to what has happened, Her Highness's visit and departure will be postponed to allow time to recover from what has happened. The girl looks at the sun reflected on the door. I wish the rumors would continue to spread. A smile breaks out on the heroine's face, knowing that the girl will definitely not be able to give a worthy answer this time. Lurthella is just a spoiled child who keeps making the same mistakes, which seems funny. Even the emperor did not dare touch the sword, shield, and treasure of the empire. He simply could not allow such a thing. This was all the only princess of peasantry. She was the most valuable thing for everyone around in the castle and among the people. Ursia Pisanthria was and remains an important piece on the chessboard, capable of doing anything. The beauty controlled the groups of pieces on the board very skillfully, as if this was what she wanted to do all her life. The rival had been spending the temple's hard-earned money on all sorts of trinkets, so now it was time to see how she would get out of it. Smiling and looking at the board where one figure has fallen, the girl understands that the battle will be extremely interesting. The morning arrived very quickly, so the blonde went to her office to sort out some paperwork. The rumors seemed to be gaining popularity, spreading at a speed never seen before. In order to get rid of old rumors, you need to start new ones, so this rule has never failed. Leaning back in her chair, the girl thought that the temple should not continue to support Navia because she certainly did not deserve it. The girl is the daughter of an oracle, so all this time she received many temple privileges. The window flies open and flutters long hair in the wind. It seems that someone did it on purpose to ruin the hairstyle. The heroine's languid gaze rises forward. She was thinking of nothing but revenge, which was not going to keep her waiting for long. Previously, high priests did not interfere in worldly affairs, but it was said that the current one was completely different. It is known that the man is still not on the side of the new princess, which means there is still a chance to lure him over and set him on the right path. Miss Lurthella is not supported by the Marquise's fallen family, but the temple is a great influence, since among the people its power is equal to that of the emperor. It is very difficult to resist such abilities and resources, and if this continues, the situation will get stuck in a dead end. If Navia continues to dishonor the temple, then everything will change. The oracle would hardly want something like that. Apparently, after all the rumors, this is exactly where the path leads, so all that remains is to change the priest's mind. If it happens that everything goes according to plan, then everything will end quite well and definitely in favor of the girl behind the throne. Ursia still didn't even know what the high priest was like. That would be the next task to find out. A man with snow-white hair turns around, swinging his blade. The training is going on as usual. The young man is interrupted by a voice calling him. He, in turn, lowers the blade, relaxing a little. The sparring opponent falls to the ground to rest, while the mentor moves forward to the newcomer. The letter was delivered from the palace itself, and it stated that Princess Peasantry wanted to meet with his enlightenment. A sly smile almost immediately appears on the face of the young man who has made his own plan. He knew it would be like this. The time for the meeting has not yet come, but it seems that Sia is closely monitoring the information she needs, giving herself an account. As the young lady walks through the garden, she leads her maid behind her, because today, as usual, she has a lot of things to do. Turning around just a few centimeters, the maiden calls out to Azriel, who looks into her mistress's eyes with interest. Taking off her dark cape from her shoulders, the maiden hands it to her friend, because the air in the morning is quite cool. Trying to object, the maiden was interrupted by the princess, who asked in a sweet voice what was wrong, to which she received a negative answer. Azriel, as is known, had her own role in the plan. She was the older sister of Rubella Portuba, the prince's assistant. The brunette may provide help that is not usually expected, as she is kind. It is worth keeping allies. The girls are in the beautiful castle garden, which, as usual, is blooming and fragrant. Roses have always been the most beautiful. When calling her friend, the girl hears the address, "Your Highness," to which she shakes her head negatively. This is no longer a real status. Turning away, the girl asks not to take into account such trifles, which are not so important. She wanted to say that the beauty called her simply princess. The girl's cheeks turn bright red as she nods. She feels as if she is getting closer to Ursia herself. In one of the halls in the garden is one of the most remarkable buildings in the entire kingdom. The glass house impresses the heroine. The blonde nods, smiling. Only certain families are allowed in, so it's a great honor. The girl's brother is His Highness's assistant, so their family cannot be called ordinary. It is worth coming here more often. Smiling, the brunette nods to quickly agree to what she is being told and not drag it out. The woman looks straight at her interlocutor, who hesitates, as if she is about to say something that has been bothering her for a long time. It turns out that Azriel hasn't been able to find a home for a long time, so she just lives with her brother. Maids usually go home or live at the palace, but for her it's different. Bowing her head, the heroine asks with interest whether the maiden really loves Rubella so much, who treats her well. This is true, because the brunette cannot imagine her life without her brother, who constantly helps her in everything. The smile itself renews itself on the face. The girl has swallowed the bait, which means there can't be a better moment now. Extending her hand, the heroine sighs in admiration. It turns out that the girl has lived away from her family since childhood, so this is worthy of praise. The girl's hand gets tangled in the brunette's hair, who tries to justify herself and say that everything is fine. Looking straight into his eyes, the princess asks what topics Azriel usually talks about with her brother. Smiling, the girl says that she doesn't have time to talk to her brother, so she is so interested in listening to other people's conversations. The beauty knows that they usually tell each other how their day went, or when one of them learned something new. Sometimes they also talk about work, but it is this question that interests the heroine the most. The fish was hooked, so without a trace of conscience he tells about some dangerous mission that his brother was sent on. It must be difficult to be a prince's assistant due to constant problems, so this cannot be ruled out. The girl knows that all her brother does is constantly laze around, and this is not the first time. The other day, the princess saw a man playing chess with another assistant. This seems untrue in Azriel's eyes. She can't believe what she was just told because he always said that his job was too difficult. The guy lied all the time, telling how hard it was for him, so much so that he could barely hold on because of the volume of tasks. The man kept saying that he had been saddled with some of the temple's responsibilities and that now he didn't even have a single day off. Obviously, the guy wants to pretend that he is cooperating with the temple, but even in action, they and the empire had a complicated relationship that could not be fixed. The question remains about Princess Lurthella, who appeared on the throne out of nowhere. Everything needs to be sorted out because the situation is currently at a stalemate. The girl reaches out to Azriel, asking her to calm down because she was joking. The girl freezes in surprise, blinking her eyes, as if she had heard an unfunny joke, which it was. She and her brother are very close because they are the only two in the palace. The princess knows how hard the young man works. The friend nods in agreement because she has always been confident in the truth of her brother's words. The blonde is a little worried about one thing. Her brother will soon return from the war, and she has absolutely no idea what to tell him. Jumping up from her seat, the brunette furiously asks how she can help. Bright lights of joy shine in her eyes. If Azriel was already involved and was willing to help, then there was absolutely nothing to worry about. This rule had long been learned. The girl left the hall to go and do her duties, leaving the princess all alone with her thoughts. The girl is ashamed that she wants to get closer to her brother only for her own purposes, which are not as pure as they seem. Azriel even swore that she would not tell anyone, which meant she intended to keep her word, but this matter was reaching a dead end. The beauty raises her mug of something to take another sip and finally calm her nerves, which are seriously frayed. His Highness was someone the crown princess certainly didn't expect to see that morning, after everything that had been going through her head. Miss Lurtella appeared like a curse at the prince's side, holding his elbow and smiling a nasty smile. The heroine silently watches the couple, hoping that no matter why they came here, the performance will not last long. Curtsying, the blonde asks what the former empress is doing here. The girl listens to what they are starting to tell her. It was not the first time that Virgo had said that she needed to be as polite as possible, but it looked like she would have to explain it again. The gaze is directed to His Highness, who stands silently to the side. The beauty asks his permission. In fact, it's all false because the heroine is her own mistress, but consent from the outside helps a little. It seems that Navia does not know the rules of etiquette that even a 3-year-old knows. The maiden is not allowed to talk to her without this permission. The heroine cannot consider her interlocutor to be a simple daughter of the Marquis. She is no longer a princess, but she is treated well. The little girl thinks that they are on the same level, but she is so stupid that she still does not see the difference. The woman's father is the Duke of Peasantry, so simply being his daughter, the lady is worthy of such treatment. Looking menacingly at Miss Lurtella, the lady orders her to be silent. Otherwise, if she says another word, she will be tied up and taken away again. Everyone around should be more polite to the future queen. This time, such jokes will not work, no matter how much we would like it. Virgo looks tiredly at her interlocutor, who, like a vampire, sucks out all her strength in order to continue fighting. The prince is completely impossible to understand. He just stands silently to the side and watches as his beloved is being slandered. The man either tests the girl's fragile patience or simply decides to remain neutral, which is strange in his situation. Miss Lurtella leaves the princess alone and turns to His Highness, smiling. Running closer, the heroine grabs the guy's forearm and elbow. She finds herself next to him again, just like when she came here. Smiling, the little girl suggests leaving this place as soon as possible so as not to spoil her mood for the whole day. The brunette watches the girl's actions with concentration. You can tell from his eyes that he's most likely not thrilled, but his actions are impossible to predict. It's strange that the girl is somehow too calm after the rumors that began to spread quite recently throughout the empire. Considering the girl's temperament, one could understand that if she felt superior to the princess just once, she would try to destroy her. It seems that the beauty is not on good terms with the priest, which means that it was the truth that was learned. The voice sends Lurtella herself to the castle. The heroine tries to understand what it is, while the prince pulls his hand away from the baby, who is in a state of shock. Without giving her any more right to say anything, the young man again orders Navia to go further alone and just wait in the castle. Curtsying, the girl promises that they will meet very soon, even if she looks a little discouraged. The man moves forward to stand directly in front of the lady, standing next to the table, allowing Lurtella to move forward. Before leaving, the girl turns around to look at the heroine. She only looks haughtily at the departing lady. The girl's hand is noticeably squeezing the hem of her dress, most likely from anger, which is almost impossible to contain along with the overwhelming feelings. The woman sits down on the chair and lifts her mug of tea again to take a small sip before starting to talk. The cup falls back onto the plate, producing a slight clanking sound that is a bit jarring to the ears. Looking straight into the prince's eyes, the lady asks what he wanted to talk about so much that he came and stayed with her. The man rises from his seat and bends down right next to the girl's face, who turns away. They say that the lady has been doing strange things lately. When asking again, the girl acts as if she is hearing about something for the first time, even if it is not true. Most likely, this refers to rumors that have been spreading too quickly lately, almost at the speed of light. The man asks Ursia to stop. She herself understands perfectly well what is wrong, but this cannot continue. Rising and extending his hand to his former lover's face, the prince reminds her that this is not a request, but an order and a warning. The girl should be smart and understand for herself that her friend simply wishes her well, and not the failures that will happen to her later. Throwing away His Highness's hand, the girl nods in agreement. She has no choice but to agree to the conditions set. The guy can warn as much as he wants, and it will no longer depend on anyone else. Once upon a time, a maiden loved a young man very much, who was ready to come to her aid and protect her. In moments when the lady was afraid because of rumors and condemnation, she always understood that there was someone to help her. The friend always called the blonde by name, trying to support her even if he was not capable of much. The little girl loved the brunette because he called her by name, also coming up with abbreviations. The girl loved the boy because he always extended his hand to make everything easier. The boy always held hands with the princess, realizing that this way she would be taken more seriously than before. Now everything is in the past, so the beauty reminds that the Pesantria family will not allow anyone to become their enemy and live in peace. Virgo simply follows the rules of her family because that is how she was taught by her father and mother, who cared for her. The guy tries to stop Ursia, who is already getting up to leave the garden and not to be alone with him. Turning away, the lady asks him not to call her by her name anymore. They are no longer together, so there is no need for it. Now for the young man, the maiden will forever remain Princess Peasantry, who will soon become simply a nobody. After what was said, my soul did not feel any lighter. The girl follows the path to hide. The beauty moves forward rapidly, but the noise of heels behind her makes it clear that someone is following her. Most likely the young man is not completely brainless, because he is waiting for the lady to go to a deserted place in order to deal with her. In the stable, there is only a groom who takes care of the horses. He is the same man who most likely pursued the girl. There is certainly no lack of courage, especially since the lady knew that she would not back down. She takes a jar of potion out of her pocket. Turning around, the heroine asks in a menacing voice if her companion is afraid to be left completely alone with her. The one who followed the princess was none other than Miss Lurtella. She did not say everything she thought. The heroine looks into the lady's eyes, asking what she needs, to which she, laughing, asks to listen to her. Virgo comes from afar but hits the nail on the head because everything that is said is true. Various rumors began to circulate. It didn't take long for the future princess to realize that her rival was spreading them. Folding her arms across her chest, the lady easily replies that it was not she who first started the war between them. It was about the rumors that were also spread about Ursia. The maiden would never say anything about her. The blonde frowns. She can't believe that she made a mistake in choosing the one who started throwing mud at her. Asking who did it, the heroine receives only an easy answer in the form of the fact that the interlocutor does not know. Instead of saying anything, the girl opens a jar of blue potion. Smiling, Peasantry offers to show the girl something interesting, something she hasn't seen before and might be interested in. The liquid turns purple and slowly flows onto the ground. If it were anyone else, the lady would have poured it on them. A scorched circle forms on the ground, revealing that the contents are more like acid. Miss Lurtella, clearly not in the mood, steps back. She frowns, realizing that she has been lucky. If Navia wants to discuss something, the best solution is to simply write a letter, which can save a lot of time and nerves. The girl quietly advises not to get angry with her so as not to get into even more trouble, but something attracts attention more than words. On her finger is the very ring that was given to the princess long ago, and the very one that the girl returned to the prince. The thing is on the left ring finger. You don't have to be a wise man to understand what it all represents. The girl has a nasty character, so of course she won't miss the opportunity to make fun of you. She smiles. The prince gave her the very ring that she herself returned to him. The princess is probably very sorry, but she does not regret anything. Chuckling, the beauty notes her surprise that someone liked worn-out things in principle. If she were Navia, the girl wouldn't be so happy. There are also many pitfalls to what happened. Looking at the ring again, the heroine tries to justify herself. She is wearing it only temporarily until a new one is made for her. Apparently the future princess has nothing more to say. This means she is free to get out of the way. The interlocutor's hand clenches into a fist to try to calm the anger that is clenching inside. Sighing heavily, the girl nods her head without saying another word in order to maintain a decent pose. The girl doesn't know what to say anymore, so she turns around and slowly heads towards the exit of the garden. The heroine carefully watches her rival's movements so that she doesn't think of doing anything strange. Stepping aside, the maiden calls out to Ash, who had been nearby the whole time. They manage to talk only after sunset. Coming closer, the guy asks, "Is everything okay, madam?" He decided to stay to check everything. The maiden grins. She was afraid that she would not be able to cope with her anger and would end the princess. But everything turned out well. The man nods. He wanted to deliver a letter that was waiting for its time, so he tried to meet with Ursia. The guy rummages through his pocket, trying to find something, and then hands over the envelope he needed. The paper said the war was over, which only meant that the soldiers would be back in a week. 3 years ago, the Kingdom of Sepia asked the Empire to send them an army to help them, which was formed. In return, an agreement was signed that they would become loyal vassals of the empire. It was then that Rius Ursia's brother, went to war to defend the nation. Rumors spread quickly, so the lady knew that the empire had managed to win with almost no losses. What happened meant only one thing: the boy who left with his brother would also return very soon. A smile appears on the heroine's lips. She understands that things will only get better from now on. What happens will be something that can influence the course of the battle and play into the hands of the main character. Only a week had passed, but it was almost excruciatingly unbearable. The girl, as usual, lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. The soldiers, as promised, were to arrive the next day, thus fulfilling their duty. The sun has not risen, so the beauty decides to sleep a little longer, but in the morning she is surprised by what she sees. Sitting up on the bed, the maiden looks around. The entire bed is strewn with beautiful peony-colored flowers. The beauty picks up one of the buds to examine, realizing that it is not poisonous, but left only for pleasure. The Pisantrius family places a lot of emphasis on medicine, including poisons, so poisoning the princess will not be easy. The door opens, allowing a figure to walk inside. A male voice asks if the heroine is awake. None other than Alfredo Venezia, the second prince, appeared in the room. He asks smilingly, "Did the maiden like the flowers?" Adjusting her hair, the beauty asks in surprise why he did this. She had no idea about such a turn of events. Without letting the princess say another word, the brunette bends down next to the bed, holding out another bouquet of roses. The blonde watches all the actions in her direction with concentration. It doesn't seem absurd. Turning away, Ursia asks why Alfredo has come. They were not supposed to return from the war until tomorrow. Smiling, the prince remains silent. He simply admires the heroine's morning beauty. Sitting down on the bed next to her, the brunette finally justifies his visit. He just wanted to visit his girlfriend. The young man ran here as fast as he could because he had just recently learned that the prophecy had completely changed. Reassuring the guy that everything is fine, the girl nods. There is nothing to worry about, but there are still a few pressing issues. The boy has grown a lot. 3 years have passed, which means he is already 16 years old. Alfredo is the illegitimate son of the emperor and the brother of the prince. Moving back a few inches, the boy notices that his friend is right. He is no longer that little kid. Stretching his arms forward, the brunette clings to the girl's body and hugs her with all his might. Feeling the confusion on his girlfriend's face, the guy looks up, asking if she remembers something that happened before the war. The heroine lowers her gaze, realizing that she knows perfectly well what exactly is being discussed. From the very beginning, and from the very moment the maiden appeared in the castle, everything changed for Alfredo. The boy was always alone and was constantly bored because no one wanted to spend time with him, so he asked the heroine if she was too busy to spend time with him. Smiling, the girl assured him that everything was fine, asking the young man what exactly he would like to do. From that time on, this couple became inseparable because the guy followed his girlfriend around like a little puppy. The princess gently strokes the boy's head. She is proud that he was able to return safe and sound from where the queen sent him. Still not lagging behind his friend, the young man pressed himself even closer. He felt very lonely without the only person who understood him. Letting go of the lady, the guy moves away to do the same manipulation with the flower. When Alfredo was 13, Ursia allowed him to enter her room without permission, so he thought the agreement was still in effect. Pulling the flower closer, Venice carefully tucks the hair behind the ear and inserts the peony into the beauty's hair. Looking at the girl who turns half away, the man quietly asks if she doesn't mind. Nodding, the girl changes the subject. It is important for her to know that no one saw the young man, to which he answers positively. They did not need any extra problems. This is good, because even if the heroine broke up with the hereditary prince, such rumors are definitely of no use to her. By calling his sister, the brunette is trying to get her attention because there are still a few unanswered questions in his head. The guy frowns and then asks if it's true that they really broke up with his brother. Turning for just a few seconds to look at her interlocutor, the lady nods slightly. The young man understands that it was all the truth. He couldn't believe it until the very last moment, but it was true. As the young man approaches the girl, he calls her by name before speaking. He asks if she would like to have breakfast with him. The next step is for the young man to bend down and kiss the back of his sister's hand. Responding with a refusal, Ursia reminds that the guy still hasn't even greeted him and Her Majesty. They can spend time later, but now it's worth going to see your father and stepmother, even if it's a little upsetting. Looking sadly at the floor, the guy turns around and heads for the exit. After all, he hasn't changed a bit over the past years. Once outside the door, the guy smiles. He understands that now he will have a chance to prove himself, so he will definitely try. While combing her hair, the heroine approaches the window, behind which noise can be heard. The squealing and clanging prevent her from concentrating or relaxing. People outside the window are rearranging boxes that keep arriving and arriving, adding new ones to their ranks. The servants can't cope with everything. Most likely, the castle is planning to hold a banquet in honor of the return of the knights who managed to remain safe and sound. If a former princess who broke off her engagement shows up at such an event, the reaction of the prince and his new companion will be extremely funny. There is silence in the office as usual, which is broken by Azriel. She has arrived to announce the letter. Taking the paper, the princess thanks the maid, who immediately smiles. She always liked praise from her mistress. The heroine slowly unfolds the message, which had a strange content, but it was not the most important thing at the moment. As expected, the brother returns to the mansion. He is the heir, and there is too much work for him to do over the years. The young man will still come to the banquet, but this will be a one-off occasion, after which the visits will end. Preparations had to be made for the banquet, even if, as is well known, this was done by servants and knights. Nodding, the maiden asks if Azriel will get there. She will go with her brother, who will, of course, take her with him. Pretending to be miserable, the heroine asks the girl to help her, because she needs it more than anyone else. When asking what happened, the girl doesn't give time to answer, immediately saying that she is always ready to help. The heroine turns away, making a gloomy face. Azriel immediately finds himself on his knees next to her, trying to find out what happened. Just as she was about to talk about Miss Lurthella, the heroine obviously changes her train of thought and asks the maid to forget about it. Clenching her fists, the brunette assures the mistress that she can tell her anything and she will definitely help her. Sitting down next to him, the heroine asks him to simply listen to her. Cats are scratching at his soul, so an hour of stories certainly won't hurt. Bowing down, the princess asks not to tell anything to anyone, simply so that the conversation remains a secret. What the blonde is about to say could seriously damage Miss Lurthella's reputation, which seems wrong because Navia was stalking Ursia. Sitting in the office, the girl thinks about how to deal with her rival. Nothing helps, and even a bigger debt will not change anything. There is no point, so the woman simply calls Ash, who should have already found out what she needs. The man collected all the information he found on the Marquise in a folder, but the girl is interested in where he gets the money from. Ash nods his head. There's something there because it turns out the Marquis was lent money by someone to live on. The trade guild has become a center for donations, all because the leader's son is in love with Navia. In reality, things are completely different. The brunette understands that the Marquis has simply found the young man's weakness. Weaknesses are something Ash knows about, but he knows that Lurthella killed one of his relatives to serve money, which is completely immoral. The boy's father still doesn't know the whole truth, so the young man simply pressured the head to agree, and the Marquis didn't tell him anything. In that case, the best solution was to pay Lurthella before getting into a lot of trouble. Besides what was just mentioned, Ash had prepared something much more important, and that was worth taking into account as well. The temple also lends money to the Marquis, which is an even stranger branch of income than the guild. It seems obvious because now Lurthella is the child of prophecy, but the brunette outlives the lady. The matter is completely different. It was exactly the same even before the prophecy changed. The temple, all this time, almost always gave money. It is the priest who gives the money who announced a new prophecy, which brings a lot of false information and suspicions. The girl jumps up from her seat. She can't wait any longer because answers are the most important thing to unravel the tangle of events. Many say that the guy is having a secret affair with Miss Lurthella, who appeared in this way in the prophecy. This announcement seems extremely strange because, as far as we know, priests are forbidden from having relationships. For those who serve in the temple, relationships are a strict taboo. For some reason, the high priest decided that he could afford to behave in this manner. The girl looks thoughtfully at her reflection on the glass. She doesn't know what to do in such a situation. Turning to Ash, the heroine asks him to do something very important for her, because this remains the only way out. Bowing his head in a helpful gesture, the brunette promises that he will do everything that Her Highness wishes, because one must remain loyal. Virgo wants to know more details about Navia. Her weaknesses are the most important, but there was only one: beauty. Apparently, the maiden was truly obsessed with fancy dresses, jewelry collections, and beautiful servants. Looking into the young man's eyes, the woman quietly asks him to seduce his rival in order to continue to act according to the established plan. If this is what the princess wants, then the young man will fulfill any order or request. He nods his head in agreement to the adventure. The heroine only has to arrange one single meeting for the couple, and then they will get what they want. If Ash asks for it, then he will be given a meeting under the circumstances of which he will be able to do what he promises. The man was a dagger that her father gave the girl for her birthday for complete protection and peace of mind. The boy grew up in a guild because he was being trained to become a killer in the future. He trained for this very purpose, without sleep or rest. It turned out that in the end, Ash was left completely alone. No one was willing to help him or do him a favor when he needed it. It was when no one wanted to deal with the boy that his father found him and took him with him to leave him in the estate. The young man began to live with the Duke, and therefore, after everything he had done for him, the boy was ready to do anything for the Pesantri family. Memories of when the girl was still very little, no older than 12 years old, creep into my head. His Highness had given the girl a full day off that day, so she didn't intend to waste a minute. She wanted to read longer. Passing by one of the doors where the light was on, the little girl froze. She thought that everyone had long since gone to sleep. Coming closer to the doors, the maiden carefully opens them, quietly asking, "Who's there?" so as not to scare him. In the room was none other than Ash, who was completely covered in red liquid. He looked surprised. A hand from the floor reaches forward to grab the princess's ankle, causing her to let out a small cry. Squinting, the girl jumps back, but they hold her in such a way that it takes more than the first or even the second attempt to do so. The man on the floor pulls the future princess towards himself, making some strange, frightening sounds due to the pain that enveloped him. Ash steps on the guy's hand with his foot so that he no longer asks for help, and he himself asks Milady to return back to her chambers. Insisting on staying, the blonde asks that everything be explained to her first, and then she can leave with peace of mind. Continuing to swear, the girl tries to insist on her own, completely not noticing the blonde who appeared from behind. Hearing someone's footsteps, the maiden turns around sharply to prevent something that could happen by accident. The brother, who is also completely covered in stains, quietly asks in surprise why Xia came into this room. The girl worriedly asks her brother what happened, to which he simply hands the gloves to Ash and picks up his sister in his arms. Trying to escape and continuing to kick, the girl tries to jump off, but no one gives her the opportunity. The boy brought his sister into the room and sat her down on the bed. He quietly asked her what she was doing there, being all alone. The girl still wants to know what happened there, to which the blonde just shakes his head slightly. Children of Sia's age should be in bed at this time, so they shouldn't be wandering around the castle. None of this matters at all. The young man puts the heroine to bed so that she can sleep instead of reading. The baby still can't fall asleep, so he promises that he will answer all the questions asked of him, no matter what they may be. Kissing his sister on the forehead, the young man asks her to sleep. He just needs to wait until the morning and then he can explain himself because now is not the time. Closing her eyes, the girl watches through a crack as her brother turns around and heads out of the room to finish what he started. The servants who met the boy did not react at all to his behavior or to his dirty clothes. What happened made the girl think that everyone all this time was perfectly aware of what was happening in the castle. Later, the heroine learned the whole truth. That very day, her brother and Ash dealt with the killers sent to the girl from the prophecy. It was because of the girl that many servants suffered and died, who tried to slow down the mercenaries as best they could. The Pesantrius family had suffered a great deal, and the girl, as a child, had to go through it in order to grow up. It's funny that after everything that happened before, now history was repeating itself, because new mercenaries appeared out of nowhere. Not expecting an answer, the princess grins. She asks if Miss Lurtella sent the men, which seems obvious. The heroine had long ago noticed that she was being followed, and so she was meandering around the garden. It was time to do what she promised and deal with each of them. The mercenaries who were going to deal with the defenseless princess turned out to be the ones who would be killed instead of her. A whistle is heard throughout the estate, after which Ash appears, who attacks the people in black robes with all his might. Jumping to the side, the guy gets into a position that is most convenient for delivering another blow towards the enemy. Ash shields the lady so that no one else can try to harm her or ruin anything. She orders them to deal with the guys. The man apologizes for not dealing with the attackers much earlier, because now it seems almost too late. Of course, the brunette carries out all orders without further ado. He asks the princess to turn away and close her eyes so as not to see anything unnecessary. The lady stands with her arms folded across her chest, continuing to watch what is happening around her. She enjoys the picture. Ash, as usual, does the best job, as the opponents fly to the sides one after another as if weightless. The heroine does not hope that everything will end in their favor, so she helps the man by talking about the fighter on the right. Jumping back, the guy swings, thereby getting rid of the last opponent who probably already greatly regretted that he messed with him. The young man drops to one knee and asks for forgiveness. He did not want Milady to see everything that happened on the battlefield. Smiling, the lady assures that everything is fine. She cannot behave inappropriately, so she hands over a napkin to wipe her face. The brunette looks at him in surprise, freezing because it is Her Highness's handkerchief. He could have just washed himself so as not to stain the thing. The man was badly beaten by the attackers, who were originally intended for the princess. If this happens, the guy simply doesn't dare refuse because he understands how it could end for him. The guy turns towards the victims. He left one of them alive so he could deliver them to the Duke's estate. If the mercenary tells something, then it will be possible to officially accuse Lurthella of attacking Ursia. Everything should be kept secret, precisely because they were sent by none other than Lurthella. No one else would dare to carry out such an attack right on the palace grounds. First, it's worth finding out how Navia is connected to the temple, otherwise it's dangerous to mess with her. The survivor should be taken to his father. The guy can be locked in a cage because someday he might still be needed in court or in life. Night has fallen on the street. The castle has fallen asleep, and only the heroine remains, standing by the window accepting the bird. Every day the chick flies from the estate to the capital and back, which makes him very tired. From the letter, the girl understood that it was quite difficult to find the one behind the guild of assassins who attacked. Attention is distracted by a knock on the door, which seems to sound deliberately too annoying, even for such a person. The Virgin invites the newcomer to enter, and so none other than Alfredo appears and greets his sister. The young man has come to deliver something important. He fumbles around before finally handing over something that will leave the heroine surprised. The hero ends up with a snow-white dress in his hands, which by law should have belonged to Ursia. Getting up from her seat and clearly nervous, the heroine asks how exactly the man managed to carry this thing with him. By extending his hands with the garment forward, the guy seems to be applying it to the woman's figure. It belongs to her and no one else. The girl was supposed to wear a dress to her wedding, which ended up falling through. Alfredo looks surprised as if he didn't know this. Looking into Venice's eyes, the blonde asks why it was brought. It turns out that some marchioness wanted to steal the thing. That person was none other than Miss Lurthella. The boy nods in agreement because it turned out to be true. The guy's eyes light up with an evil fire. The girl shouldn't have touched other people's things without asking, even under such circumstances. The maiden sadly looks at the robe that was in her hands. Navia, the new child of prophecy, is therefore no longer a strange marquise. Changing the subject, the beauty asks again where the boy got the dress. She notices his surprise. In fact, it was all a pure coincidence. The boy went to get a gift, but saw a girl with pink hair, so he followed her to the bar. The brunette waves his hand, saying that he didn't take her for an acquaintance. He would never, ever be able to confuse her with someone else. The interlocutor nods her head, agreeing with what she heard. She throws the dress on the table so as not to hold it in the air any longer. The heroine sits down on the sofa, asking about what happened in the bar. This is the most interesting part now. The young man sits down opposite. He begins to say something, but at first, as it turned out, only Ursia's name was heard. The heroine repeated the name, looking at the dress she stole from the closet. She was not very verbose. The boy felt sick that the name was mentioned in such a place, so much so that he just wanted to beat everyone up. The brunette decided not to waste his energy, so he just grabbed the dress and ran away. He asks for praise. The heroine looks at the thing again. The snow-white fabric made it clear that it could only be worn to a wedding. Turning again to the guy opposite her, the girl is about to tell something, but in the end she simply stumbles, unable to collect her thoughts. Memories of the prince telling Ursia that the most exceptional color is white because it stands out the most come to mind. White has the ability to add sophistication to anything or person, which is why it is considered so beautiful and special. The prince had seen many outfits, but this was one of the best. He was sure that the garment would look great on the maiden, even without useless accessories. The hero carefully places his hand on the top of his girlfriend's head, stroking her hair so as not to ruin her hairstyle. According to him, the accessories were not in the style of peasantry, who could outshine any of them without any effort. It seemed as if the air had suddenly become poisoned, making the girl breathe harder. Love was gone. Turning to Venice, Ursia again says that she has absolutely no need for the dress he brought with him. For the heroine, such clothing was just an empty reward that she still wanted to accept. What happened to the girl and what she received is more for the future years spent in the Empire. Now everything has really changed, for the worse. The heroine is no longer princess peasantry, and she doesn't need a dress. Smiling slightly to lull her friend's vigilance, the blonde asks to quickly return the thing to Miss Lurtel. The guy gets up from his seat, walking with his boots right along the hem. He gently takes the beauty by the face, asking what happened to her. The girl silently looks into the eyes of her interlocutor. She cannot explain why exactly she acted in this way. The brunette examines the heroine's facial features. It's hard to believe that she almost always had such a sad expression on her face. Pysantria puts her hand to her cheek. She never even thought about how she looked to others. The girl reaches out and runs her hand through the hair of the boy opposite her. She asks if what he just said is true. Pressing himself against the palm that was held out, the boy lightly rubs against it, nodding in agreement. The guy turns to kiss the palm on the other side, continuing to look into the beauty's eyes. Shah interrupts the guy, asking him not to do this again for his own good. She is a little busy, so they will talk a little later. Alfredo agrees, since he arrived in the room without any warning, which of course took away attention. The woman's gaze shifts back to the dress, which is now lying on the floor instead of the table on which it was placed. Sitting down at the table, the heroine accepts the letter. The day after tomorrow there will be a banquet in honor of the knights who have arrived. Everyone around, instead of discussing the banquet, is talking about the heroine and who she will be with since they turned away from her. It is incredibly interesting to see if the girl will appear at the event, since due to the collapse she is still in the palace. Some believe that the princess will not come because of her ex-lover and Miss Lurtella, who will also be there. Others, on the contrary, think that the lady will come only to look at the prince who has not yet been released. Everyone around wants Ursia to arrive because then there will be a show program at the festival. It is incredible that the lady has lost all her status so quickly, so she has to appear. Some people think that Pysantria will cry because she sees Navia, and others think about the scandal that might arise. A smile appears on the sweet face. The blonde couldn't miss it, so she will give what the audience wants. Some people will have a hysterical fit of tears, and some might even faint from shame. But it will be worth it. All this does not mean that the tricks will be done on behalf of Ursia. She took care to make a better plan. There is a knock on the door, and then from behind the door, Azriel appears, smiling helpfully at the princess who summoned her. The heroine asks her friend to come a little closer to her so that they can speak more calmly among themselves. The beauty rises slightly from her chair in order to whisper the necessary information into the ear of the maid, who seems to have understood everything. Beaming with joy, the brunette promises that of course she will do everything possible to help. Navia will not be a hindrance. Nodding, the blonde thanks the girl, who seemed to be almost the only one who still hadn't turned away from her mistress. Secondary roles are also extremely important, so the girl must take care of the couple for the event. Thoughts are interrupted again by noise outside. The girl waves her hand, indicating that the person is allowed to enter. The elderly butler bows politely, holding forward a box of letters that arrived with the previous ones. The princess snorts and takes one of the top letters, but then returns it to its place after a few seconds. Virgo asks to throw away all the mail that she received, and in return to send only one single important letter. The man accepts the item, hearing that if there are any more offers, he should simply throw them away. The heroine has long decided who to go with. It will be a mystery to everyone, but only for the time being. It's getting dark outside, so the lady gets up from her chair, leaving some paperwork on the table. Sitting down on the soft bed, Ursia sighed heavily. The day seemed too long, so it wouldn't hurt to rest. Miss Lurtella will get what she deserves, because up until now, everything that has happened was just innocent pranks. The lady hopes that Navia is looking forward to the banquet just as much as she is, because that is where an unforgettable surprise awaits her. From the very morning there is noise in the castle, which does not allow to get enough sleep. Preparations for the banquet are in full swing, approaching the end. If the event takes place in a palace, you won't even have to do anything special, because some people don't eat in order to fit into their dresses. The virgin will have to do only the simplest thing, namely begin preparing a plan that will be suitable for the destruction of Lurtella. Hiding around the corner, the heroine watches the figures that appear nearby. The servant kneels down, apologizing to Navia. He thought the item was a trinket, not the princess's. The blonde walks away, saying that she is not angry with the young man because she only had to ask to clarify the situation. The man holds out a brooch, to which the heroine asks in surprise where she managed to get an item that belonged to a royal person. Miss Lurtella seems to be quite dim-witted, since she did not immediately recognize where this thing came from. When Navia was chasing the girl, she still made one of the most important mistakes that helped in drawing up the plan. The princess dropped a brooch, which was picked up by Ursia. She couldn't immediately figure out what to do with it. Picking up the thing, the heroine squeezes it in her hands. It will still be useful, which means just in case it is necessary to save the brooch. Yesterday the maiden called Ash to her again, but when he was about to leave, she made him stop. A great plan appeared in Pasanthria's head, which promised to be wonderful to carry out. The virgin promises to tell everything. Taking a thing out of her pocket, the heroine holds out a brooch, saying that it belongs to the marquise. The hero bows, promising that he will use the chance that the lady gave him. It is in his power to do everything possible, even if something does not work out right away. Ash did not disappoint, so following a strict plan, he shared his discovery with absolutely everyone around while being with the servants. As soon as the rumors reached Navia, she herself came to personally deal with the servant who dared to rob her, but he assured her that he found the thing on the grass. The boy did not dare to say anything more in response, because he was sure that he would never dare to do something terrible. Looking into the eyes of the young lady, the man again repeats that he would never dare to rob the lady. The heroine freezes, looking at her interlocutor with an enchanted gaze, which immediately speaks of her interest. Tears begin to roll down the cheeks of the young man, who promises that he is not lying, which means he can be trusted. The girl's hand approaches the servant's face, while she herself asks if these are really true words. Ursia looks out from behind, but seeing everything that is happening, she smiles, because she understands that the plan worked out perfectly. The brother, who had long since arrived at his father's estate, had already managed to settle in when he was interrupted by a letter that arrived from the princess. Nodding, the young man accepts the paper, which had been sent quite recently and therefore related to the banquet. After quickly reading the contents of the letter, the boy orders the servants to prepare the horse on which the master will ride. Opening the cupboard, the blonde says that he is going to the capital, even if the horses were going to be prepared in the morning because of the banquet. Blue Eyes turns, glaring menacingly at his assistant, who seemed intent on irritating his master. The man runs away, bowing, saying that he will arrange everything. Everyone in the estate has long understood that it is better to agree. Things were much better in the temple, but the monks were also preparing for the event. One of them asks the monk about the meeting with the princess. The smile seems cold. The man realizes that he is lucky because that special day has finally arrived. Princess Ursia Pasanthria was also ready to do whatever was necessary. She couldn't wait for the moment of revenge. The lady-in-waiting who was getting the empress ready asks what kind of shoes she should bring. They should be neat. Running from side to side, the maid tried to complete as many tasks as possible that she had to do. The slipper turned out to be on the blonde's foot, so the maid asks permission to leave the room. Allowing them to leave, the heroine looks sadly after them. After the changes in the prophecy, everyone turned away from the princess because it was important to them. The butler, who had been staying nearby, tries to start a conversation. He remarks on the fact that it is beautiful weather outside. Leaning closer to his ear, the man announces that His Highness and Miss Lurtella are heading into the hall. Clearing his throat, the acquaintance asks when the prince will arrive to keep the young lady company. As we know, the blonde is not the most punctual person, but it is better for him to arrive before the dancing begins. One of her acquaintances comes up to her and asks why the lady doesn't want to wear any jewelry, but it will make her look heavier. At nightfall, the princess awaits a dear guest. He will be the one who will be her partner and who will dance with her. The maids who surrounded the girl chirp about how much they are worried about the arrival of that very companion. The beauty nods. She is more than confident in the man, so all that remains is to wait for that very moment. The girls are very worried, so the best solution would be to go for a walk while they all wait. Already standing near the front door, the ladies freeze because someone on the other side spoke the doors, entering inside. The blonde man with the wonderful eyes bows. He, like a true gentleman, will open the door for the maids, but he has come to Ursia. The blonde freezes. She quietly says the name of her brother, who appeared in the room completely unexpectedly. The man leans closer, joyfully greeting his sister, who has probably been waiting for her companion for a long time. The couple had not seen each other for a long time, because the girl was only 15 years old when they last met. Her face had not changed at all. Extending his palm towards the heroine, the young man invites her to finally follow him into the hall. As the couple enters the banquet room, they are met with many stares that cannot believe Rius has arrived. Remaining calm and not showing a single emotion on her face, the heroine understands that now the show will begin. A whole crowd of girls has gathered around Lurthella, discussing the desserts that the princess cannot try because of how tightly her corset is tightened. The castle is still fun, even without desserts, which can be replaced with other activities. The topic changes because one of the ladies says that the son of the Duke of Pisanthria and Ursia Pisanthria herself will arrive. Anger is instantly reflected on the face of the main character, who is irritated by the former crown princess who just won't calm down. Just a minute ago, everyone in the room was chatting enthusiastically, but the conversations were replaced by a deathly silence that formed. It is easy to understand those around her because the lady was once a crown princess, but almost never appeared at banquets. Rius peasantry, who has spent the last 3 years at war, is attracting even more attention. Absolutely everyone in the empire knows such a famous name. It doesn't even surprise anyone how popular he is. Ever since he was a child, Rius has attracted a ton of attention, and not just because he is the heir of a duke. The boy has inherited his mother's beauty. The boy began learning fencing at a very early age, and over time he honed his skills, which only improved. Having reached such heights, the young man received a sword from the emperor himself at the age of 16. No one would admire a man if all he did was swing a sword. He also had other values in his life. Rius is talented in paperwork, so she not only helped her father, but also participated in the management of the duchy, doing it quite skillfully. When the young man turned 20, he volunteered for the war, as he did not intend to sit back and profit from someone else's glory. The brother had killed many enemies on the front lines, so he was given a title in the kingdom of Sepia where he was stationed. Of course, the kingdom learned that the hero was going to war. The girls began writing plaintive letters, which were filled with tears. Remembering how the crowd of girls missed her brother, the princess laughs easily, no longer trying to hold back. The blonde asks his sister what made her laugh so much, to which Sia merely waves her hand dismissively. She remembered the old days. The girl also found it quite amusing to watch how people around her were whispering, but were not going to pull themselves together and come over to talk. The heroine decided not to tell her brother her entire plan, so she became curious about how much exactly he knew. Nodding her head towards the tables, the girl promises that she will be back very soon as she takes a glass of wine. Pushing her way through the crowd, which seemed to be getting thicker, the heroine finally notices a servant with a tray. The man politely asks what milady would like, to which she simply silently accepts the glass from his hands. Nodding to the lady, the servant moves towards Lurthella, which means that everything is going according to plan. He says that the young man, struck by the girl's beauty, asked to pass the glass. The beauty chuckles and pretends to like it. The first dance will be announced soon, and then everything will be revealed. One glass won't hurt, even if she has to go out on the dance floor very soon. The heroine is sure that she can handle it. Looking away, the maiden smiles. Navia will like the taste, because the drink is easy to drink and wonderfully sweet. It is impossible to notice that something has been added to it. Approaching her brother again, the girl nods. Everything is ready, which means that there will only be more interesting events from now on. Miss Lurthella drinks, trying to swallow as much as possible. If this continues, you can see that the event will end just fine. The man quietly asks Ursia if it's really just wine, to which she nods lightly. A little of the potion had to be added as well. The young man chuckled and looked into his sister's eyes. He didn't believe in this little bit because he knew Ursia like the back of his hand. While straightening her tie, the heroine notices the fact that the potion was ordered from her father, which means it was quite good. At first, the princess wanted to mix the potion of truth herself, but nothing came of it because of the complex recipe. Looking at the girl, who was slightly unsteady, just a few steps away from them, the heroine understands that it is time to reap the benefits. Coming very close to her rival's face, the lady says that she spread all those dirty rumors throughout the palace. Milady shrugs because she knew everything. Nothing worked, because the girl had to lose her temper. Smiling nastily, the beauty assures the heroine that she doesn't care at all about her every action. Once Navia takes the throne, she will try to bring the girl to her knees and properly disgrace the future empress. It turns out the potion worked exactly as planned. The show is just beginning. Now everyone present will understand who the main character in the castle is and why Lurtella is behaving this way. For some reason, the prince didn't think and replaced the queen with this girl who doesn't understand anything. That was mistake number one. I remember that very day when the girl first entered the banquet hall. She was walking arm in arm with the prince. The emperor and empress always danced first, while the prince's couple danced next in seniority. The couple always danced before the others, which was a great honor for them. The sleepless nights were finally paying off. The girl doesn't care about the memories at all, because now the brunette has personally destroyed everything that was between them. But there was one but. The heroine has been working hard to become a princess for so long, so she has been working day and night. She can't let Lurtella ruin everything. From that very moment, Ursia decided that everyone would play by her rules, which were not invented just like that. Stepping back, the girl asks Lady Lurtella to calm down and not make unnecessary noise right in the banquet hall. Holding out the handkerchief, the maiden asks her to be careful, because no one would want her to fall by pure accident. Navia chuckles. She warned him of the consequences, because she would never allow anyone to treat her like that. Everything that will be done will be for the good of the girl. They did not even notice how the atmosphere in the hall changed. The princess carefully grabs her interlocutor's shoulder. It seems she's had a bit too much to drink, so she needs to be as careful as possible. Jumping to the side and throwing off the palm, the blonde rudely asks to leave her alone, bursting into a menacing scream. It's strange that the girl remained too calm even after the potion. Perhaps this is just her true face. Frowning, the heroine asks if the former princess knows one person who has been around her lately. Virgo doesn't understand who they're talking about. She'd really like to step aside and ask for more details, but everyone is watching now. Attempts to pacify Miss Lurtella continue. Instead of passing by and resting, the lady hits her interlocutor's hand. The heroine takes her palm back, pretending to groan, because she really did feel a little pain from the blow. The girl, on the contrary, asks the princess not to try to pass off something that is not true as the truth, because she almost didn't touch it. The people around are talking among themselves, discussing the behavior of the young lady, because it is not worthy of someone with such a title. No one understood why the girl was chosen for a new prediction, and a legend that somehow changed. Azriel appeared out of nowhere on edge because she had promised to protect the princess. Lurtella has no right to behave like this. The heroine asked the maid to bring her a glass of water, and she herself immediately ran to fight with Ursia, who did not deserve it. Turning to the maid, the heroine looks at her with an uninterested gaze while she talks about how the princess is the best. The girl grabs the dress of the maid, who seems not to quite understand what might happen to her in the next few minutes. Trying to move away, the brunette begs her to let go so as not to cause unnecessary harm. God chose someone else, so someone like Lady Lurtella cannot fulfill the prophecy. Unable to bear such ignorance any longer, the princess swings her hand and with all her might touches her companion's cheek. The brunette immediately grabs the bruised area, looking at the floor in shock because she was just called a commoner. Sitting down opposite the girl, Navia warns the maid not to come near her again, so as not to make things worse for herself. Peasantry, who is nearby, watches what is happening. Miss has played her role perfectly, so now she shows her true face. No longer willing to tolerate her friend's humiliation, the princess steps forward and begins to speak. Azriel interrupts the beauty. According to her, if Lurtella were the maiden from the prophecy, she would not have hit an innocent man. The heroine tries to step forward to silence Portuba. She wasn't going according to plan, so it was worth saving her faster. Halfway there, Navia was the one who happened to be nearby, and as a result, she struck him on the cheek in the same way as she had the maid. Turning away, the girl tries to open her eyes. Her cheek is stained red, which can be seen for kilometers. People around are whispering in amazement about how terribly the child of prophecy is behaving. She dared to ruin everything. Not understanding what just happened, the heroine examines her hand, amazed by her actions. It seems that the girl has begun to come to her senses, so we need to report to the Duke as soon as possible that the potion has an expiration date. The curtain fell, and the blonde's true essence came out. She fell onto the floor of the ward, looking around in surprise. People just won't shut up, starting to make guesses. Many think that the oracle was simply wrong, since he put such a person. Everyone doubted the veracity of the prophecy from the very beginning, which seemed fake, but if it is really so, the maiden will be able to fix something. The girl extends her hand to help, which causes Lurtella to fall into complete horror. The girl looks around, listening to the rumors that are creeping in. No one is able to come to terms with what happened. Apparently, the heroine wanted to get rid of the princess too much, so she fulfills her silent request by letting go of her hand. As Navia falls rapidly, she realizes that the impact will be hard because a tower of glass goblets can be seen behind her. It seems like what's going to happen next will hurt, so it will feel great right now and then too. Without having time to say anything, the maiden came to her senses already in the arms of His Highness, who pulled her closer to him. The man, for some reason, did not help Lurtella, but instead chose his former lover, who no longer meant anything. Thanks to the brunette, the former princess was not hurt at all. She can't figure out what exactly the prince was planning. Navia bursts into tears. She can't believe that everything that happened to her and was only her fault. The heroine, trying to play a good role to the end, bends down next to her rival, extending a helping hand to her. There is no sense of reciprocal kindness, because the beauty screams that Ursia is to blame for everything, having orchestrated all the horror. Asking if the princess is hurt, Pysantria steps aside, because the maiden herself rises from her seat. It seemed that the girl said a name that was heard for the first time. It was necessary to find out who exactly this mysterious person was. The blonde approaches her friend, offering her to rest in her quarters, to which she receives a new portion of negativity. The girl smiles and then walks past the heroine. She promises that she won't just let all this go unpunished. Looking at the maiden's trail, Ursia promises that it will be so, but she does not care whether Navia is from the prophecy, because such behavior is unacceptable. The servants and those who arrived on the sides again begin to talk about how the Marquise will not be a future princess, because she simply will not cope with her role. Silencing everyone, the girl menacingly asks if her friend is asking for the punishment she deserves. The god himself could not have chosen the virgin to be the one who would protect the empire and help everyone around. Now everything has become much clearer. You don't have to be a wise man to understand that there was something fishy in the scheme. There was enough of everything for the day of the event, so all that was left was to wait for a response from Miss Lurtella. The guards take Navia by the arms, asking her to come with them. The prince does not move from his place and does not help his new lover even after everything that happened. There is definitely something strange going on between the couple, because they did not exchange a single word and did not arrive together. Attention is drawn to a voice from the side, calling Sia's name to speak. It was the brother who realized that the girl had been badly hurt. He noticed a scarlet stain, so he brought napkins. Assuring that everything is fine, the girl asks not to worry. She will not agree to treat the wound. The man nods in response, but still recommends doing the treatment after the banquet to be completely sure of safety. The conversation is interrupted by someone from behind calling the princess by name. They could not allow themselves to touch her shoulder. Azriel stands next to her with her brother, quietly asking if Ursia is in pain. They disappeared from sight not so long ago, but now they have appeared. The girl had not seen Portuba for a long time, because he was, after all, the prince's assistant. The girl did not want to have anything to do with him. Bowing his head, the man greets the girl as a crown princess, even if she has not had that status for a long time. The young man's attitude had not changed at all. It seemed that everything that had happened had not affected his opinion, which is why Rubella behaved this way. Nodding, the girl notes the fact that they really hadn't seen each other for a long time, due to the fact that she hardly saw the prince anymore. Rubel hadn't changed at all. He was still respectful, trying to please everyone, but at the same time he was embarrassed by criticism. Among all the prince's assistants, the young man is the kindest. He is a great person, but too emotional, which leads to certain difficulties in his work. It is precisely because of such a difficult character that the guy will never become the closest to His Highness, but the princess does not know this for sure, since she has never worked with him. You can immediately tell that these two people are related because they and Azriel are very similar in their kindness and innocence. Coming closer to the maiden, the blonde reaches out to examine the wound. She asks why the maid interfered. It all happened because the brunette was afraid that the mistress would suffer. The girl is grateful for the rescue, but she would not want anyone to suffer. The princess asks not to worry, because it is not the maid's fault. She was simply worried about her condition without any bad intentions. Turning to Sir Rubel, Ursia asks him to go home early. It would be the right decision to gather his strength. The banquet continues. The former princess is surrounded by noble ladies who are trying to find out from Her Highness how she is feeling. Everyone sympathizes with the young lady. They thought that Miss Lurthella was chosen by God, but it turns out that she was just pretending, for which she will receive her punishment. Raising her glass to take a sip of the drink, the Virgo thanks for such concern because it is incredibly important to her that everything is exactly this way. Many believe that Navia will get what she deserves and the prince will do it. The girl cannot but agree because it is the prince who should do it. The ladies can't stop talking about how sad the prince has been lately. Perhaps it's because the prophecy separated him from his beloved. Everything is clear, and it became clear a long time ago. The young lady did not leave the palace only because of the one she loved with all her heart. The couple is often seen together, so this is probably why the rumors started. No one knows the truth. The lady had long known that people around her were whispering about her and the prince, but she had never heard any details. Ursia truly loved the boy, so she thought he felt exactly the same way. Now she wasn't sure. In truth, the heroine never knew the truth, but for some reason she was thinking about it so hard right now. Nothing else matters, and even if the future emperor loves her, she no longer feels anything. Despite everything that is constantly spinning in my head, it is difficult to understand why the young man is always there at the right moment. Hoping to save his sister from her predicament, the brother approaches from behind, calling His Highness by name. The man greeted Duke Rius with a nod. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, so this reaction was quite logical. Coming closer, the young man bows his head in respect. 3 years had passed, but they did not feel like that at all. The girl can only rejoice at how quickly her brother arrived, because he and the prince get along well. Now she won't be left alone with him. Rius is only 3 years older than His Highness, meaning they can be considered almost the same age. Previously, this small age difference was felt quite strongly because the prince could never defeat his brother in any fight. The boy wielded the sword so well that the emperor gave him a standing ovation. He admired such abilities. The king asked the young man to become a sparring partner for his son, who was just learning to wield a sword. The brunette nods, saying that His Majesty is saddened by the fact that he was unable to meet one of the best knights. For some reason, the young man tries to hide his sister from the prince, as if he is afraid of their clash. He promises that he will immediately go to meet the king. The lady is in heels, but she can barely see the prince's face, so she only hears him asking about the collapse on the road that has almost been cleared. It was not easy to clear the rubble and restore the road after everything that happened, so the young man can only praise the servants for the good job they did. Nothing will work anyway, because the brunette still wants to talk to the princess. She asks her brother to step aside. Looking straight into Rius's eyes, the girl seemed to be trying to convince him that everything would be completely fine. The conversation will be about what the Virgo should do, who hopes for a resolution to the situation, so there is nothing to regret. The maiden looks the young man over from head to toe. She doesn't immediately notice the hairstyle that the man wears only for banquets and the suit that his beloved gave him. The young man never appears in public in the same outfit, so such an outburst does not look like the prince himself. Today was the first public appearance of His Highness with the new princess, who ended up behaving inappropriately. Interrupting the beauty's thoughts, the man asks if he can talk to the beauty alone, to which she nods. The girl is glad that this is a request and not an order, because the brunette politely asked if it could be done without any pressure. The guy knows how to use the advantage of his position, because even in such a situation the girl cannot refuse the prince. Retreating into one of the corridors, the couple stops so that no one has the opportunity to overhear the conversation. Leaning against the column, the maiden reminds that if you want to talk to her, you can make an official request. The girl remembers how she always ran to the prince at the first call he gave into the air. They hardly saw each other with the young man because of work and responsibilities, so when the opportunity arose, the beauty ran as fast as she could. This happened every time he wanted to meet. The girl never refused because she was afraid. Coming closer and stopping just a few centimeters away, the prince mockingly asks if he really needs an official request to talk. The guy leans even closer. He warned his ex-lover not to go too far, but as usual, she didn't listen. Raising his hand to the princess's cheek, the man asks again if she will obey him when he orders something. The beauty freezes as if rooted to the spot. Lately, His Highness has begun to allow himself too much. Throwing her hand away, the blonde repeats what she said earlier. She will not forgive Miss Lurtel for the insult she has inflicted. The girl is not going to sit idly by while she is being treated like this, because she is no longer the crown princess who will remain silent, but peasantry. Navia acted like a little child when she staged this whole show. If a man doesn't want to watch something like that, it's better to sort it out. The maiden is about to leave, but she is stopped. The prince grabs the princess's hand, who looks at her in surprise. The guy slowly leans right over the hand and then kisses the back of it as a sign of respect or something. The heroine pulls back her hand at the speed of light, which literally burns due to strange sensations that are impossible to read. Looking menacingly at her interlocutor, the maiden warns him. She hopes that this will never happen again. Turning away, the princess looks at the young man one last time, and then quickly leaves that very place, heading towards the middle of the hall. It would have been better if the prince had not done what he did, but had thought for himself before destroying everything that was possible. The girl can't understand why the guy did what has now interfered. It seems that he hasn't changed, but the heroine herself has. One can only hope that one day the heart will stop beating so wildly when a beauty looks at a man. What happened is enough. It's not all that happened, but since the prince and Lurthella are gone, it means everything has become simpler. According to the rules of the ball, the first dance will now belong to Rius and Ursia, who were supposed to go second. Lurthella is not finished yet, but so far everything is going strictly according to plan, without any deviations that could interfere. The banquet will last all night, but it is better to hurry because no one knows what else might happen. Behind the beauty, footsteps and rustling sounds are heard, which could be incredibly frightening if the maiden did not know in advance who was there. Ash throws off his hood and steps into the light. He didn't want to disturb Her Highness, but he had urgent news. The princess ordered the servant to keep an eye on Navia, so the boy obediently waited until the maiden was alone to console her. In exchange for kindness, the beauty tried to drag the man into bed, and even if they had nothing, it doesn't mean anything. The girl simply passed out because of the potion they gave her. The main character does not immediately understand what exactly is being discussed this time. His lordship gave me the jar. No one knows about the side effects, especially since excess can have irreversible consequences. Frowning, the maiden asks if Lurthella is dead. Perhaps this was the important news the servant wanted to convey. In the end, the princess was simply unconscious. That is, we can assume that she fell asleep. He examined his companion, so everything is fine. Nodding, the heroine relaxes a little, because no matter how much she hated her rival, she didn't need any problems. Ash came on another matter, and it all had to do with the priest who had already been reported. He was also involved in the same matter. The man is interrupted by a rustling sound and a voice that wants something from the princess. Instantly throwing on his hood, the young man turns around. Forcing the guy to squat, the girl promises that she will distract whoever arrived, and Ash can simply try not to make any sounds. The servant is even bigger in size and height than the main character, so hiding him won't be easy, which means we need to come up with something. The door slowly opens, making your insides clench. Alfredo appears on the balcony, blinking his eyes in surprise. Smiling, the princess tries to hide her nervousness, which makes her almost shake with fear that someone will notice. Without moving from her place, the maiden waits until the young man himself comes closer. He asks what his sister is doing here. Noticing someone behind him, the young man looks menacingly at the figure. He asks who is behind the young lady. It is not so important because the lady wants to know much more about how Venice ended up here, since she was sure that she had locked the doors. Turning away, the guy apologizes. He seems to be in a bad mood, but he didn't think to barge in and interfere with what was happening. Smiling, the guy reminds that only members of the imperial family are allowed on the terrace, which means he can. The former crown princess had completely forgotten that she was no longer allowed to be there. She used to love coming to the balcony to relax. His brother was outside, so the boy assumed there was no one there. He had nothing to apologize for, even if it hurt to hear. If the beauty had not forgotten the rules, she would never have come here. She was aware of the fact that she no longer had access. The guy smiles, pressing himself against the girl's hand, but a second later, he looks menacingly at the hood, again asking who is behind him. Instead of answering the question, the beauty asks the young man if he wants to drink tea on the terrace tomorrow. The man lowers the heroine's hand, sadly looking somewhere to the side. The girl cannot believe that she was just refused outright. Realizing that it is not entirely normal to behave like this, the brunette quickly gathers his strength and nods actively, because he wants to. Smiling, the princess promises that she will prepare everything and will wait for the guy at her place tomorrow to enjoy time together. The man nods, saying that they will meet soon. Looking at the hood from behind again, he involuntarily clenches his fist. Turning around before leaving, the brunette assures that everything is fine because his brother won't come here. Ash stands up, asking if it's okay if they just let the potential witness go, to which he is reassured. Alfredo would never go against his childhood friend, so there is no need to worry about such trifles. Turning back to her interlocutor, the lady asks him to continue where they left off. She wants to know about the priest. The man standing below watches the terrace where the two are standing and talking about him. The blonde man takes off his hood and asks if everything is going according to plan. He seems quite confident of his imminent victory. The princess will come out and down very soon, which means that the conversation will also take place at the most opportune moment. The priest smiles. He has been waiting for this day for a long time, and finally, after everything that has happened, he can reap the benefits. Rius, who remained in the hall, talks to the ladies who seem to be pouring towards him like an endless stream to talk. The young man notices the princess approaching. Asking the girl to wait for him, he heads towards his sister. Standing next to Sia, the blonde leans down and quietly asks what happened to her, since she returned so suddenly. Whispering something in her ear, the lady says that she has learned new information about the new priest. It turns out that he came to Lady Lurthella, and it was quite recently. It's strange that a priest from the temple needed something from the daughter of the Marquise, who no longer has anything to do with it. Virgo is the new child of the prophecy that came true, but has only just changed. Nobody knows, but maybe there was more going on there than just talk. The door was closed, meaning the couple could have been hugging and kissing. They could have been in cahoots. The situation takes a different turn. Ash said he hid in the closet and saw it all with his own eyes. Lurthella was on the drug, so she shouldn't remember him. The high priest is forbidden to love, and he is also forbidden to marry and have children. He took an oath for this. Even a kiss is considered something terrible for such a person, because he has no right to it. Noticing that her brother has been staring at one point for 5 minutes, the girl calls his name. The guy thought about how much his sister has grown. When the young man left, the girl was still very little, but now she had grown so much that it was impossible to believe. Sighing, the heroine agrees. She was old enough to marry the crown prince who proposed to her. The man leans over and kisses his sister on the cheek. For some reason, he, like his mom and dad, always does this as if to show support. Looking into the maiden's eyes, the young man asks if she was very upset about the prophecy. It was the pure truth. Sighing, the heroine promises that she is no longer upset. No matter how much it affected her, she doesn't care. The brother nods, smiling. It is important to him that his sister does not feel hurt and disappointed for the rest of her life. The woman was worried about something else. As the crown princess, she looked down on her father, but now she doesn't even know how to behave. The man does not share the worries, because in his understanding, everything is very simple. You just need to behave as usual, and then happiness will not pass you by. There won't be any problems, so don't worry too much, even if everything seems terrible. Everyone always thought that the girl was above the rest, because no one in the Pisantria family could compare with such talent. Mom always said that the emperor stole their family's most precious treasure, which showed her love for her daughter. At the same time, my mother threw glasses at the wall because of the rage that did not allow her to calm down. It was funny to remember, but it seemed to my brother that the blonde was ready to throw even a whole castle. The girl is not so upset. Previously, she saw her family only a couple of times a year, but they were always happy. For some reason, everyone else thinks this family is tough and cold-blooded because it's just a mask that's visible on the outside. No one knows what is inside the family. They are always friendly to each other and are incredibly happy to be in such an environment. Very soon, the beauty will be returning home, so parents should expect new changes. From the precious treasure, he plans to turn the entire castle upside down and then return home safe and sound. Interrupting the conversation, the blonde turns towards the clock. It will soon be midnight. The clock shows that there are only 10 minutes left, which means it's time to go back. The young man looks at his sister, who asks if he will go with her. The girls behind him glare at the couple. Smiling, the guy assures that he will be glad to be with Ursia, who is almost always busy, just like he is. Virgo waves her hands, saying that the blonde can stay a little longer, but he objects. He has something to say to his sister. The couple is determined to hurry so as not to be late, so they quickly head forward along one of the corridors. The guy is the first to say that he didn't expect that the priest would have such a relationship with Lady Lurthella. It is worth remembering that the girl is undoubtedly beautiful, but it is not worth breaking the oath because of her, because he will not receive either power or money. What is also confusing is the fact that the age difference between the couple is not at all small, so this adds to the questions. We need to report to the temple as soon as possible, but this plan won't work. They will start denying everything, and then the situation will be lost. The brother nods because he didn't immediately think about the fact that they need evidence. They are probably hiding and leaving no traces. Evidence must be fabricated to finally get what he wants, but to do this, the man will need a sample of the priest's handwriting. It is worth remembering that the prophecy could be completely false. It could have been forged. The maiden only hinted at this fact during the ball, but Lurthella had already turned completely pale, which proves the fact that she was hiding something. It was the new priest who announced the new prophecy. Something will remain unclean, because usually the head of the temple or a select few receive the news. The prophecy changed just as the head of the church changed, leaving even more clues to latch onto. The guy turns around and then stops. He asks the girl if she wants to know what can be done. You can forge the handwriting and leave a note in which the priest confesses his sins, and then Rius will kill him, making it look like murder. In the note, the young man will talk about his relationship with Lady Lurthella and that the prophecy is actually false. In order to spin everything as the truth, it will be necessary to write that the priest was driven to take this step by a feeling of guilt that he went against God. If the couple kills the man, then of course it will be easier because everything will end, but it can't be like that. Nodding, the young man agrees. Whoever kills the priest will suffer divine punishment which he would not want to receive, so all that remains is not to interfere. Looking into her brother's eyes, the girl begs him to write just a couple of letters in his handwriting, because it will help her in another way. The young man nods. That will be enough, especially since the priest will remain completely calm. The conversation is interrupted by one of the servants, who hurries to Rius to report something important. Something happened, so we need to go through to figure it out. The servants themselves can't figure it out, so we need the Duke. Smiling, the girl promises that everything will be fine. It seems that something is urgent, so she will just take a walk at this time. The lady moves further into the depths of the garden. Too much has happened today, so there is not a single guard there to interfere. The girl approaches the edge of the lake, which reflects all the lights from the castle and the rooms that are around. The view is worth it. The man quietly sneaks up behind the woman and grabs her, asking her to be patient for just a minute. She must come with him. Someone special wants to meet the main character, but Ursia does not share his desires. The girl stepped on the boy's foot with her heel, who immediately jumped back, starting to writhe in pain from his leg. Just about to run, the maiden is stopped again. The guy stands up, grabbing her beautiful hair, thereby pulling the princess towards him. The girl understands that she cannot avoid being captured, so she grabs the jar that she had in her pocket for emergencies. The next second, the beauty opens the lid and pours the liquid directly onto the attacker's face and body. The man lets out a wild scream as the contents reach his skin. The empty can falls to the grass next to his feet. The heroine quickly removes the bandage from her mouth and slams it into the guy's face with all her might, who lets out another scream. The maiden takes out her blade and strikes her opponent with all her might, asking who he is. Anger splashes in her eyes. The girl wants to know who the important person is that they wanted to take her to. She is about to strike again, but a voice stops her. It seems that the girl needs exactly the person who has just arrived. A man in a white robe stands just 2 steps away. Looking at the girl, he orders her to throw down the dagger, and then the explanations will be given immediately, to which she refuses. The guy has no other choice. Gathering some white energy in his hand, he reaches out to the man lying on the ground. Lifting the servant, the man places his palm on the wound, which immediately begins to heal. The blonde steps back in horror. She has never seen anything like this before, but it is easy to remember where it came from. The white hair gives away everything that is going on. Smiling, the young man says how glad he is to meet them and introduces himself as Azriel. His name doesn't mean anything, so the next step is that he removes the hood from his head. The girl can't believe that this is the one she wanted to kill at some point. He is standing right in front of her. White hair, which is only worn by those with divine powers, as well as blue eyes and pale skin, are the hallmark of a temple leader, with whom even the emperor is forced to reckon. It seems the guy is talking, but it's worth asking what he's doing here. The priest was very rude, so there's no point in groveling before him. Smiling, the blonde says that he did all this just to meet the young lady. Holding out his hand, the young man straightens his hair, saying that it had become completely disheveled during the fight. The voice is full of care and admiration. The man gently strokes the pale face, which is so different from the others. Leaning closer, Azriel asks if the maiden is afraid. The fear should have passed after he arrived at her. Throwing away her palm, the girl notices the fact that the guy didn't just come to chat, so he must say what he needs. Nodding his head, the leader says that he wants to discuss something. This was the #1 reason why he was here. Nobody knows anything about the head of the church. Nobody knows whether he is a man or a woman or how old he is. The heroine never thought that she would meet the blonde in such circumstances, or that she would meet him at all. The garden is not the best place for discussion, so it is worth going a little further and finding a more suitable setting. Refusing, the heroine demands an explanation as to why they tried to kidnap her. All this because maybe the guy just wanted to get to know the princess better. He tried to act quietly, but she turned out to be much stronger. For some reason, the priest thought that it would be much easier to kidnap a princess who had spent her entire life in the palace, but it turned out that this was not the case. There is no one around who can resist the priest. Otherwise, if even a hair falls from his head, the hero will experience very severe torments. If you show weakness, then you can easily become a victim, but the guy has absolutely no weaknesses. The main thing is to stay calm, so the girl asks why the boss didn't send her a request for a meeting. The young man wanted to do without formalities, but the lady does not want to be told twice. If there is something to say, one must say it directly. Sighing, the priest says that he doesn't care. The princess can behave as she pleases. You can't look away, but the feeling is completely different from when the heroine looks into the prince's eyes. The young man seems to condemn her with his gaze. Looking into the lady's eyes, the young man asks if she will become his new lady. If she is the child of prophecy, there is no point in refusing. The girl is sorry, but the prophecy has changed a month ago, so Miss Lurtella is now the chosen one. Twirling the dagger the man took from the lady, the boy laughs. No one can believe what happened. It's easy to get hurt with a weapon like that if you make even one wrong move. I can't believe Azriel is so easy with it. The priest learned this, someone not in the temple. The lady heard that it differs from the previous ones, but not so much. By saying her firm yes, the maiden makes it clear that she truly believes that the prophecy has changed itself. Later, her opinion changed, and the boy is probably interested in why. She has something to tell. Azriel will like the information that will be given, but in return he wants to receive something useful and well used. The girl wants to receive equally important information, to which the priest nods. He agrees to the deal. It's already a bit late, so the man says goodbye. The woman hopes that next time things won't start out so harshly. Turning away, the guy swears that this will never happen again, so there is no need to worry so much. Smiling, the man bids the lady good night. He extends his palm, expecting the princess to follow the rules of etiquette. Getting what he expected, the blonde carefully leans down and kisses the back of his hand. The man builds up a ball of energy in his hand and then extends it towards the lady. His blessing will be a sign of apology. The couple disappears from view, leaving the girl completely alone in the garden. She tries to comprehend everything that has happened to her. The maid who accepts the evening dress notices with horror the red spots. Apparently, the princess is fine and uninjured. The girl is incredibly tired because the day was too eventful. She sends everyone to their rooms. The eyes close on their own, preventing you from concentrating on anything other than sleep. The maiden places her hand on her cheek with delight, noticing that it no longer hurts. Most likely the healing came with a blessing. The hand that had to accept the energy no longer glows, although this was exactly how it was in the first few minutes. The lady leans back on the bed. The priest who was hurt was also perfectly fine thanks to Azriel. The priest also took the dagger, which was always in his pocket. The virgin is going to use a slightly different one and preferably sharper. There is a noise behind the door, and then a measured knock. Getting out of bed, the girl asks who has arrived at such a late hour. While adjusting her hair, the lady asks what happened. She is no longer a princess, so there is no point in disturbing her. The lady-in-waiting appeared nearby, saying that the prince wished to meet the lady. He asked her to be brought to his room. It seems that words were not enough, even if the heroine explained everything very clearly. Sighing heavily, the maiden agrees. If the words weren't clear, then she'll have to explain it again. The girl leads the former crown princess down the corridor. The lady has not been in the crown prince's room for a very long time. Now, walking into that very room, the heroine for some reason remembered that she had not been there since the very moment she was notified of the breakup. There are too many memories in the castle, and so wherever you go, you can build a whole chain. Looking at the window in the corridor, the maiden remembers how exactly she stood with the prince and discussed some other book. The place seemed to attract the heroine, even without any explanation. She comes closer while the woman behind her calls out to her. Turning away, the heroine nods. There's nothing there, so don't focus your attention on it. The guy's room was included in this endless list as something special. You didn't even want to go there. The lady-in-waiting knocks, saying that she has brought Ursia. Every time she was here, something new came to life in her. Every time my heart was ready to jump out of my chest, no matter how many different emotions were present. It was on the sofas in the room that the boy did cute, childish things that were not at all typical for him, and also whispered sweet words. The little girl was definitely happy then because she enjoyed it, but even that had its price. The girl liked it when the guy affectionately called the princess by name and prepared all sorts of delicious things, but now it didn't make sense. The man standing in his dressing gown near the window doesn't even turn around. The lady coughs behind his back, saying that she was called. The young man turns, asking the young lady to sit down on one of the sofas for a conversation. Sitting down on the prepared seat, the lady asks why she was invited into the hall. She did not want to go. The silence in the room drags on, and now seems like a particle of air in which everything hovers. The man doesn't seem to be about to speak, but even in this case, the lady has an idea. She asks if Lady Lurthella had a prince. There was no reaction in response, but it seemed the prince didn't know about Navia's relationship with the high priest. Even if he did, it wouldn't help him. The lady remains the same. She pretends that she doesn't care about anything, even if deep down she has completely different feelings. It is this face that shows that the prince has now become only a shadow of his former happiness. The lady freezes. He seems afraid of what he will say to Lady Lurthella, but it seems more absurd than real. Trying to move away, Ursia asks him to remove his hand, to which he receives a strange answer. The guy is not sure whether he should do this. The lady asked, and it doesn't matter whether the guy wants it or not. She won't repeat the same thing twice. Throwing her fingers back, thereby causing anger, the lady asks His Highness to go back to his new beloved. Getting very close, the guy confidently asks if it's true that Navia is still bothering her. The lady continues to say, His Highness, even when she is alone with him in his own room. She seems to be very hurt by what happened. The lady is still thinking about the princess who took her place. It is no longer a question, but something else, because the young man starts shouting. The man, looking at Pysantria with an evil eye, asks if she is going to leave the castle or if it was a lie. Trying not to show her true emotions, the lady merely nods. This is no longer a place for her. The desire to do this was given by the prince because he announced the breakup. There is nothing more to do in the estate, and there are no reasons left. Ursia didn't find answers to the other questions, but she answered this one quite willingly, which seems strange. The young man thought that by calling him into his room he would receive a different scenario of events, but it seems his hopes were not justified. For some reason, His Highness treats the heroine so cruelly, even if she doesn't deserve it. Turning away, the lady asks if that was all the prince who called her wanted to say. Peasantry is really fine, despite the fact that the couple has long since separated. The reaction also did not justify itself. The man has the right to ask such questions in these circumstances because, according to him, he can do absolutely everything. Smiling, the lady laughs. The guy says it's like he's with her and they love each other. This man is completely incorrigible. The guy turns away. He tells the lady that she can do as she sees fit, and this is the second time he has said that. The lady can't stand this whole show anymore because it's beyond her strength. All the accusations and how angry the guy is infuriating, because Ursia has lived her whole life only for the prince. The lady bows her head and then quietly says that she no longer needs His Highness. He does not deserve her love. The prince changed his princess, but still wants his ex-lover to say that she needs him. The heroine presses on a sore spot, but it is deserved. It was the young man who decided to break off their relationship so he should not regret anything. Even the prince himself managed to forget this truth, so now he is trying to involve peasantry, who is not guilty of anything. The blonde can pretend that this did not happen, but most people think that the management of the country should not be entrusted to a person with a short memory. Unable to withstand the onslaught any longer, the young man turns around abruptly, shouting Ursia's name and her full surname. That is the name of the lady, and she is the one who almost gave him her name, and is also the ex-fiancé who was abandoned. Virgo almost became the owner of one of the most noble surnames in the world, but she doesn't need it. The woman steps back, sighing in disappointment. She shouldn't have shown her true emotions. The heroine does not want this, especially since nothing can be changed in the current situation, but she no longer has the strength to restrain herself. The lady did everything that was asked of her, without any mistakes. She tried to be the one that the people would like. The lady did everything to become empress, followed all the words, but in the end the prince simply broke off the engagement. As she turns to say something else, the girl feels her arm grabbed and pulled forward. If the man were asked to reconsider his decision again, everything would be completely different. He regrets it. The prince has no right to say something like that when he did this to a princess who didn't deserve it. The lady turned out to be too cruel, because in the end she can tell everyone that she didn't even shed a single tear and just leave. Smiling through her tears, the blonde notes how selfish the prince was and remains. Wiping away the tears that are streaming down her face, the lady turns around to run out of the room as quickly as possible. The door slams shut, leaving the young man completely alone in the empty room and Ursia leaning against the wall. The woman tries to hold back her true emotions, but she has already shown them. The tears cannot be stopped. Nothing will change, and this becomes immediately clear. His Highness will live a happy life with his new lady. Ursia, in turn, will be obliged to praise the couple who will become emperor and empress. This could have been a good script, but the girl just can't leave it as is without any edits. The sound of the window sashes attracts attention. The girl turns, hoping that it is just the wind that moves so noisily. The beauty freezes because a priest appeared in the window and jumped into the room. He smiles. Lowering himself just a few steps away from the bed, the man says that he has one very important conversation. The guy left so willfully, and now he has returned unexpectedly, which makes one doubt. He apologizes to his new lover. The guy looks at the beauty, holding out his hand. He doesn't know what happened to Ursia, but maybe if he can console her, he can win the princess's heart. Taking her hand away, the beauty takes a few steps back. His Holiness is behaving strangely. The young man wants to say something, but he falters when he notices a red mark on the wrist of the young lady who is standing right in front of him. A sad look examines the hand, which seems to need someone to heal the bruise, albeit a slight one. The man leans over the hand, quietly saying that it is not permissible to treat the body of such a beautiful lady in such a way. The heroine doesn't even try to object, because a bright flash of energy takes away all the unspoken words. A smile immediately appears on the good-natured face. The blonde is just glad that he managed to heal his beloved. Nodding, the lady gives thanks for what happened to her, because she did not expect to receive healing so soon. Smiling slightly, the young man says that everything is fine and then apologizes again for barging into someone else's bedroom like that. Noticing for a moment the open door and window, the lady asks how the priest got into the room. The man turns to the window frame. The beauty probably saw him climb into the window and jump off the sill. The heroine can no longer even imagine what else this man is capable of. An ordinary person would not have climbed so high. The leader chuckles as he says that there was a tree there, and even though that still seems like a pretty high mark, it was easy for him. The girl sighs heavily, but promises that she will not ask stupid questions anymore. This is definitely a victory. Still inserting what was being said, the beauty asks why the guy came here. Chuckling, the young man notes the fact that he thought the girl would simply throw him out or call security that very second. Taking into account, the beauty promises that if he does not do this, the woman will do it immediately. Laughing, the blonde man says that he thought there was a chance that the princess would remain on the throne and amaze everyone with her beauty. Instead of following the usual solution, the lady changed, leaving Azriel shocked. The girl freezes, asking what is meant, but in response she only sees a hand extended in front of her. The boy was surprised when Ursia took the sword and without thinking swung it at the priest's servant. What had happened just recently was quite an impressive sight, despite how the servant felt afterwards. The lady is too tired, so, stepping back, she says that there was no need to climb into the room just for this. There is something more important, so the man came so late at night. The wind from the end makes the girl shrink. The guy instantly comes closer and takes off his coat, throwing it over his beloved's shoulders. He finally found that real reason. Azriel came to possess the princess. The mouth itself opens in surprise. The beauty stares blankly at the interlocutor, trying to understand and accept what was said. The boy sees that peasantry is lonely and bad. He wants to be there and wipe away her tears and then be the one who wins her heart. From the very beginning, it seemed to the hero that the blonde was too weak to be alone, but now it is clear that this is not so. The heroine looks at the floor, trying to find the right and correct words in the current situation. The man thought that he finally had it, but it seems he was simply mistaken, so he was about to leave the estate. The lady asks if this was a warning. The guy is capable of kidnapping her whenever he wants, and also coming into the room whenever he wants. There were almost no other reasons because the young man was asking about her attitude, which had not changed. This warning was for him too. A smile spreads across the boy's face. His expectations were wrong because now everything has completely changed. The imperial family locked peasantry in the castle, so the young man believed that the maiden was a little bird who knew nothing, but everything turned out to be the opposite. Apparently, the priest thinks that the heroine is a young lady who knows nothing about this life, which seems funny. For some reason, Azriel considered the prince to be the only talented person in the castle, but the lady is not so simple either. The conversation turned to the crown prince, but the beauty didn't really want to talk about this topic. It cannot be denied that if you look at the path that the young man had to take, it becomes clear how beautiful it is. Everyone around knows that the empire flourished thanks to the reign of His Highness, the Emperor. Sitting down on the bed, the man is about to say something else, but the lady says that it is all her merit. If this is true, then it becomes unclear why this was done and what the motive was. The maiden was forced to do certain things in order to take the place of the empress in the future and become an exemplary ruler. For some reason, the beauty begins to feel very sleepy, which seems extremely suspicious. She was sure that she could not sleep for 2 nights. Placing his hand on the top of Ursia's head as she sits next to him, the guy talks about how unfair it was. The lady sighs. She doesn't want to think about anything like that anymore because it makes her upset. Everything that happened taught Pysantria a good lesson. It doesn't mean she'll let anyone do that to her again. The guy quietly notes the fact that the lady has been looking tired for a long time, which means she has every right to go to bed in a soft bed. Everything before my eyes doubles and blurs, perhaps because the magician's clothes exude some kind of power. Carefully lifting the girl, the guy lays her down on the bed, carefully covering her with a soft blanket. Almost in a dream, the blonde says that things containing magic should be registered as national treasures. The imperial palace does not manage the temple, especially since such a young lady should not worry about such things. Now the beauty will never get the place of empress, because everything is finished just as it should be. That's why the monk can take the girl with him. It sounds more like a question, but there is no answer. The princess is called, to which she lazily opens her eyes to see her interlocutor again. If the couple's thoughts are very similar, then the young man would like to take his beloved right on the same day. Touching the hood of her cloak, Ursia thinks that she could take off her clothes right now. The girl doesn't want to show herself in such a bad light, so she leaves everything as it is. She doesn't want to take off her coat. Smiling, the man looks at the princess. She wants to sing a lullaby and put her to sleep and then hug her. By placing his hand directly on the girl's forehead, the guy tries to do everything so that she can finally rest. They will definitely see each other again. Another scuffle breaks out near the temple. An assistant holds a man who, according to him, was one of those who lured the student priests to extract information about the temple from them. A face full of sarcasm and betrayal looks straight at a man who has already managed to regret everything he did. Most likely it would be better to simply finish off the brunette who, despite the prohibitions, decided to deceive. The guy was about to cry, but they told him that there would be a chance to save his life because the guys were planning to contact his boss. There is only one plan, so as soon as the servants find out about the customer, they still need to finish off the person who was caught. The lady-in-waiting, who was standing behind, suddenly notices something unusual. The priest is missing the cloak he usually wears. Turning around to show the smile on his face, the guy says that he simply gave it to the princess. The woman freezes, asking with interest what she had managed to hear. What was said seems absurd. Bowing her head, the lady listens to questions about whether she is coping with the task of His Holiness. Hearing a positive answer, the young man goes off into the temple, nodding as he goes in approval. What is happening is disrespectful to the princess, but the lady should be grateful for saving her child. What the young man asks for is a mere trifle compared to the happy life of the little boy who will now receive it. A woman has to betray her beloved mistress, thereby undermining her trust and watching her every step, but it's worth it. Morning had long since arrived, but that did not mean that the lady had slept well. She slowly opened her sleepy eyes. Getting up to sit up in bed, Ursia notices that for some reason she feels too good. Attention turns to the cloak, which falls like a light fan from her shoulders straight into her hands. Looking closer, the heroine freezes on the snow-white thing, the temple patterns right on the silver ribbon. Memories rush through her head. The beauty couldn't remember too much, but the words were blurry. The beauty looks around, nervously darting her eyes from side to side. She can't believe that what happened wasn't just a stupid dream that seemed unreal. For the first time, Ursia Pisanthria lost the alertness she usually possessed without any problems. The girl had previously conducted an investigation into the high priest, but all she could find out was that it was extremely difficult to find information about him. The divine power of the young man is too warm and pleasant to the touch, so the beauty cannot tear herself away. Having felt warmth just once, the lady does not want to forget it, which means she will have to be close almost all the time. The morning was already in full swing, so the girl was getting ready for her business, stopping only for a minute to look out the window, outside which the sun was shining. The maids who arrived in the room chatter happily about how they brought the right accessories. It was hard to believe that these ornaments were sent by the young lady's mother. It was completely out of character for her, which was out of line. Mom promised she would do something like that, but it was beyond the pale. She wasn't the type to just give gifts. While trying on the items that were sent, the lady listens to advice on how beautiful the necklace will look with the color of her eyes or pale skin, which is beautiful. Anything sent by the Duchess will be the envy of other girls from noble families. The servants' relationships changed in just a few days, but it would be more accurate to say that everything returned to normal. The girls who were now bustling around were the ones who had turned away from the princess when the prophecy changed. This is not so important, because the lady is looking at her reflection with interest. It is difficult to imagine a more charming woman. One of the maids offers honey that was brought from the Principality of Luster, and another says something about mines and stones. The stone, which had been recently discovered, was indeed precious, so the beauty wanted to give it as a token of gratitude. The princess smiles. She will be grateful for any gifts that can be given to her. Changing the subject, but not going far, the lady recalls that the gem from the mine was what they wanted to give to Lurthella. No one understands what the maiden meant by this, but only beautiful people should have jewelry. Recently it became known that a precious red stone was found in Pavloon's estate. However, the count hid the fact that he had discovered it a year ago in order to make money. The estate decided to make 2 beautiful tiaras. One of them, of course, will be for the empress. Another tiara will be presented to the princess, which makes her blink in surprise. Since ancient times, jewelry, and especially tiaras with red jewelry, have been a feature of the royal family. The blonde, still circling around the heroine, quietly asks if the beauty will accept such a gift in her honor. Nodding, the maiden agrees, causing her friend to light up with the bright light of joy that had been hidden inside. The family's craftsmen have worked hard to make everything look its best. The lady agrees, but now she should rest. The girls obediently agree and leave the room. A strange feeling does not leave Ursia, because there is something strange there. Lady Lurtella had become something of a taboo in society circles, but that was no reason to treat peasantry properly. If you looked closely at the jewels that were handed over, you could tell that they were not sent by the Duchess. The jewelry was not in the style of the girl's mother. It was impossible for the imperial family to simply abandon the child of prophecy. The beauty goes to the garden, where Ash is already waiting for her. She would like to find out what happened. The guy and the lady have been seen too often lately, and if they are seen, both will have problems. Next time, she promises to wear a brooch. Ash nods in agreement. The item is beautiful and suits the young lady perfectly, so it will mark the meeting place. The guy has been very busy lately, but the lady is going to go horse riding after lunch, so he will be able to relax. Trying to object, the servant assures that he is completely fine, and therefore does not need a day off. Bowing his head, the young man admits that this is the least he can do for the Duchess, who has always been with him. The man apologizes for not being able to find more information about Navia and the high priest, but the lady says that she entrusted this to her father. What she wanted to know before was no longer of such interest. The lady wants to find out about rumors that may have appeared recently. The man freezes. He tries to remember what exactly he managed to hear. Rumors usually spread from the lowest to the highest, so the heroine's father put Asha in a low position. The ladies of the court are acting strangely. Despite everything that has happened, they seem to consider Ursia the heir to the throne again. The brunette bows his head and quietly says that he has something, but he didn't say it because he wasn't sure. Rumors began to circulate that the high priest had chosen the princess as the next saint to the throne. There are 2 concepts in the world. One is when a saint is a person who has power, helps and cares for the safety of people around her. The second meaning is the wife of the Holy Father who rules everything around. He has more privileges. If an ordinary monk wants to get married, he cannot do so because it is forbidden, but a priest can change this. Ash can't believe what happened, but in the end it means that Azriel most likely wants to make the lady his wife. It seems that the priest himself spread this rumor, but the servant continues to offer options for distracting the public. The lady turns to Asha again. He must not think of such rumors, which will only make him nervous. Soon the heroine will meet the man in person and ask everything. Now it is worth thinking about how to change everything. It is possible that the parents spread such a rumor, but it is impossible. In any case, this is not official information, so there will be no harm to the girl. Compared to the status of the abandoned former crown empress, this is even better for the image. Ash addresses the princess, saying that she has no godly powers at all, to which she nods because it is true. A man can't think about it that way. No matter how you look at it, it all seems wrong. The choice fell on her for no reason. Someone has always been elected to such a high position purely for political reasons, so perhaps it all makes sense. In the current situation, marriage is a great rarity, and even more so for love. The brunette bows his head, sadly saying that he no longer wants to see his mistress as a hostage to a marriage not based on love. The girl froze. It seemed to her that marrying the crown prince was not something against her own will. The truth is that, over time, the heroine simply began to take it for granted. She didn't care what she wanted. Initially, the maiden only wanted to take a place next to the future emperor, even if in the end this did not work out. The woman reassures Asha, "These are just rumors. They are not true, but only what the people around add." The man quietly asks if the lady wants to deal with everything alone. It is important for him to understand if the lady knows at least one way to do this. Coming closer, the beauty straightens the hair of her interlocutor. This conversation seems pointless because nothing can be changed anyway. Everything is fine because the young man says that this is all just because he is very worried. Leaning on the princess's shoulder, the boy asks her to take care of herself first, and then the others. Taking a few steps back, Ash nods. He doesn't want to appear weak because he's perfectly fine. What he does is work. The princess nods in agreement, but asks to report if it becomes too difficult for him. Health is also very important. Father didn't say anything, but Ursia is more than sure that several more spies have entered the palace. The man straightens up. It's not hard for him, but he promises that he will do his best to make things better. The brunette couldn't help, and because of this he is forced to watch the princess only from afar. This makes my heart ache. Virgo thanks Asha because it comes from the heart. He objects because he can't do anything, being somewhere far away, which is not true. When the Duchess first arrived at the unfamiliar castle, Ash arrived with her and has no idea how much he helped. If it weren't for the young man's character, the princess would have been a completely different person, but everything changed. The brunette assures that he understands everything, even without unnecessary words. The princess would have reached the status of a princess she had even without him. The Duchess smiles to once again express her sincere gratitude to the man who saved her. The guy comes closer and, clearing his throat, says that he lives only for the princess. She can use him as much as she wants. The servant is so devoted to his mistress that he is ready to give his life for her, ultimately regretting nothing. The Duchess comes closer, asking him not to speak of it. It is not something she would like to hear from a devoted man. The people in the Duke's residence would be surprised to see the young man in such a state. Many wondered if Ash had emotions because he acted like a robot. The guy hopes that the princess will never see the grief, sorrow, and difficulties that she does not deserve. The young man never wanted the heroine to shed her precious tears, which no one deserves. If Ursia doesn't cry in front of her subordinates, it doesn't mean that there isn't a complete hurricane going on inside her. A smile spreads across her face by itself. The girl will have no choice but to say thanks. Asha said that he will always obey the Duchess, so today she orders him to rest a little. Already leaving, the lady remembers something. She asks not to be surprised, but they are going to kidnap her in a couple of days. A lady knocks on the door, not wanting to wake someone who probably went to bed late, but she has to. She has to tell him what Asha said. A rustling sound is heard behind the door, which makes it clear that the owner of the premises has finally woken up. Entering the room, the heroine realizes that the guy has not woken up. She goes to the window and opens the curtains. Turning towards the bed, the Duchess notices only the top of a light head of hair, which is slightly visible. Sitting down next to the body, which is wrapped in a blanket, the maiden asks her brother to wake up because he knows that she is already here. The young man sits up in bed, saying that he is glad to see Sia, but certainly not at such an early hour. Smiling easily, seeing the sleepy face, the heroine learns that the high priest came to her last night. The guy freezes. He didn't expect to hear something like that this morning because it seemed more absurd. The couple was never able to talk, even though the man said that he definitely had something to tell the princess. Being alone with a stranger can be dangerous, especially when you don't know what kind of person he is. He could have sent a request to chat. Judging by the man's reaction, it's better not to tell him what happened next. The heroine fell asleep right next to Azriel. Tea was laid on the table, so the couple moved there. The girl told him what kind of person he was, because the man turned out to be the same age as her brother. Age categories aside, the guy seems pretty impressive despite all his attributes. Azriel seems to be quite dangerous because he is very different from those who came before him in the temple. The blonde chuckled. In his opinion, those who came before him were rather incompetent. High priests are generally quite forgiving and kind. With rare exceptions, they are capable of reprimanding and are not particularly sociable. The leader is always afraid of becoming hated by someone. Such people are among the few who have power and are unable to use it. You can't take your eyes off the guy, and the brother believes it, because up until that moment, everything was fine and as usual. After listening to Asha's story, the maiden realized that she couldn't be lenient, especially since there were rumors that he wanted to make the princess a saint. No one understands what Azriel is trying to achieve with this, but it seems like a statement that he wants to take the lady as his wife. Only one fact can be confirmed and said with certainty. The priest really likes the maiden, judging by his actions. This is exactly what can be used perfectly and then turned in the direction of the coup. Ursia was formerly the crown princess of the imperial palace. She became the most noble lady. Moreover, she had a beautiful pedigree. The lady had only one flaw. She was abandoned at the altar, left completely alone, unwanted by anyone after everything she had done. Now there are rumors that the priest wants to make her his wife, so this will be a great chance to remove the stigma of being abandoned. At the moment, both in terms of political views and in general, a man cannot find a better candidate. The conversation pauses, and then the lady suddenly tells her brother that she will need his help. Help needed with kidnapping. These words made the man choke on his tea and start coughing. Handing over the napkin, the lady, as usual, smiles, saying that the crown prince will do this very soon. If the young man does kidnap the princess and imprison her, a fourth squad of knights will watch over her. Among this squad, there are several interesting guys with whom the blonde can help. Just as she was about to continue talking about the kidnapping, the lady froze because Rius rose from her chair. The blonde looks closely at his sister, asking why she suddenly thought that she would be kidnapped. If the heroine were in the prince's place, she would keep someone like her to herself. This is an assumption, but a man can be pushed to do this. The only way to imprison the princess is to accuse her of a crime and then begin to lure her to your side. First of all, there should always be a couple of people around the princess. The right people have already spread rumors. Recently, in one of the kingdoms, a prince imprisoned a commoner who did not reciprocate his love. The guy's eyes light up. He can't believe that his sister decided to take such a step, thereby trying to do everything on purpose. In fact, even the heroine herself did not want to start all this, but there was also a reason to quickly check something. The guy sighs heavily. He has absolutely nothing to say to Ursia's words, but he understood one thing. Apparently, the sister doesn't even plan to return to the Duke's mansion, at least not this time. The beauty nods. She doesn't know for sure yet, but for some reason she thinks it will be better for everyone. The man says that he can refuse to help, to which he is asked what he would do. He cannot excuse anything, and if the sister wants to stay, that is her choice. The Duchess does not want to leave her affairs to others, thereby burdening the already difficult burden that they have to bear on themselves. Peasantry was originally intended to bring stability and security to the empire, but now its mission has changed. The girl is obliged to fix everything in the kingdom, but in her brother's opinion, all this is not so important. If she wanted to return, she would have returned long ago. Initially, the heroine planned everything this way because she accepted the separation as God's will. If this is someone's plan, then the maiden will not put up with it. After all, she was disgraced and removed from her place. Most likely, it was Lady Lurthella. The man tries to convince her to the last. If the princess returns to the palace now, she will have a wonderful opportunity to rest from everything while her brother takes care of the problems. If the girl leaves, no one will say anything to her. If things have gone this far, then the young man cannot object. The woman always loved her brother for his understanding. Rius never tried to interfere but remained persistent. The final answer is that the beauty does not intend to return to the Duke's estate. Sitting at the table, the beauty thinks about the meaning of the word rest. She has been running around like crazy all her life. Ursia understood that she should not have ended up in such a deplorable state, but on the throne. The heroine simply resigned herself to such a burden, because the same thing happened when the lady began to conduct the emperor's affairs on behalf of their family. It was considered something like a debt. The next step was to help the crown prince strengthen his position in society and the trust of others. At the same time, Alfredo was also trying to do his best. He had to endure a lot. The victory was certainly with the crown prince. Venice was able to avoid death only by renouncing the imperial family. Ever since then, the boy went into battle with Rius and the rest of the knights to save himself, while the heroine helped the exhausted crown prince. It was incredibly hard for the blonde, but she never thought about rest, realizing everything only after the guy's words. Since childhood, the little girl always wanted to return home, and even if it happened once a year, it was a special event. Now, when the girl thinks about the past, she can't understand at all what kind of ban on visiting her parents' house was. It didn't seem strange before. Attention was distracted by a voice at the door, which asked if it was possible to enter and was granted permission. The ladies from the palace go straight to the table, saying that a letter has arrived to be read. The high priest personally wrote a paper scheduling a meeting that would be good to spend some time on. A whole week passed, and the lady thought that the man would make an appointment earlier. She decided to take the coat with her. It was a pity to part with the warmth of the soft robe. Over the past few days, the maiden had managed to get used to it. This is not something that money can buy, even if the lady wanted to do it. You need to come to your senses. Quickly filling something out, the beauty hands the paper to the maiden, asking her to pass it on to the supreme leader. The girls start whispering as they leave. Fragments of phrases are heard, but it is clear that they now want to tell everyone that the rumors are true. As the lady thought, rumors are already circulating throughout the palace, even if many do not know who Azriel is. The festival is also just around the corner, so it is also worth preparing for it so that everything goes wonderfully. The founding of the empire is the day when the temple played an important role. The identity of the priest is shrouded in mist, but soon he will have to show himself. It is not worth lying that the heroine herself thought that she would find out the truth only at the festival, but it turned out differently. The virgin would never have thought that Azriel was the head of the temple. He was too young, and his character was not very suitable. There are people to worry about more than a man right now. The girl broke up with the prince on the day of the celebration and thought that he would soon want to return everything, but it was even better this way. A little worry was creeping into his mind. He didn't want the boy to come up with an excuse for his rude behavior that night. There is complete silence in the office. No one is confusing or disturbing the work. Leaning back in her chair, the lady sighs contentedly. She loves silence more than anything in the world. Virgo wanted to send a letter to her parents, but it might not be safe because she doesn't have a single reliable sender. If the Duke wanted, he would have found a way to contact us himself. We need to enjoy the silence and rest. Rius also left because he went to have an audience with His Highness, which meant even more joy. Ursia hadn't been alone for a long time. She could have just read a book because she hadn't had time for herself. A knock at the door interrupted the whole idyll. The heroine couldn't believe that someone had returned, but she said that they could come in. The door slowly opens and Alfredo appears. He looks a little worried. The girl quietly asks what happened, but the guy can't find a reason. He just wanted to be with the beauty. The lady can't refuse her brother, who has always been so good. The young man's gaze darted towards the library. Apparently, his sister wanted to read and was going to find something suitable. Beaming with joy, the brunette offers to recommend something, even if the last book they read was called History of the Empire. The guy asks about romance novels, but the girl shakes her head. She didn't want to read a book in which ladies get involved in love affairs. Volunteering to find something, Alfredo heads inside. There's definitely something interesting to be found in the library. Venetia searches for books on the very bottom shelf, while Ursia watches in surprise as she has never looked for stories there. Taking out the publication, the young man notes the fact that he himself has not read it, but thinks that the title is just right. The beauty looks at the cover and then laughs quietly. The book should definitely suit her. Alfredo holds up a piece called Secrets with the Teacher, which he says would be perfect for the content. The young man blushes and starts waving his arms, saying that he didn't want to get exactly this, to which the lady promises that she will definitely read it. While taking the book, the lady makes Alfredo try to get it, but he ends up tripping and falling. The guy catches her. Picking up the beauty and stopping her, the man asks if everything is okay, to which she nods. Apologizing once more, the young man repeats once more that he wanted to get another one. Such absurd situations become a hobby for Venice. The boy looks happy, but changes the subject, asking if his sister is hurt. The lady offers to take the thing and read it in the morning, but the guy squeezes it in his hands, saying that she won't like the content. The beauty's attention is attracted by something, so, asking the boy to wait, she opens the window with a bird on the window frame. Looking at the chick that Ursia had been waiting for, she smiles. He will always be a good guest. Lighting one of the candles, the lady unfolds a piece of paper and holds it to the fire. The rumors spread even to the Duke's domain. They check the veracity because the father has eyes and ears everywhere. The investigation was unlikely to be successful, even in this scenario because we are talking about the head of the temple. Almost reaching the end, the beauty notices her mother's handwriting, who also seemed to want to say something. The lady knows her daughter's situation, but still asks for the impossible. She wants the princess to find a book with records of aristocratic corruption. The book is in the imperial library, which can only be entered by members of the family to which the lady is no longer a member. This publication describes all the bribes, corruption, and how it was covered up. It even contains the sins of the imperial family. It is strange why the girl needed this book because she did not want to get any information. Thoughts are racing through her head because there are a ton of options to use, but the girl is interrupted. Alfredo appeared in the doorway and noted the fact that his companion had not returned for a long time. The lady had been gone longer than she thought. A plan appears in my head that can only be realized with the help of Venice. There is a book that interests the beauty, so she asks to find what she needs to know about. The book that Ursia wants to read is in the imperial library, where all access is prohibited. Extending her hand and interlocking her fingers, the beauty asks her to help, since she can no longer enter there. The brunette freezes and reminds him that he has no right to take books out of the imperial library. Lowering her sad gaze to the floor, the blonde reminds us that she has wanted to read this edition for a very long time. The hand goes down, and the voice with notes of pity speaks of how the lady hoped for help, at least once. Alfredo clasps his hand again and shouts out, "No!" He doesn't want to miss the opportunity that was thrown at him at such a convenient time. Burning with desire, the boy promises that he will bring anything, just so that the girl is happy. The girl nods. She thanks the young man, realizing that at least the issue with her mother's request is now resolved. Finally, everyone returned back to the palace. A week had already passed since the banquet, which dragged on endlessly. Turning to her sister, Rius notes that she had said that she wanted to stay, though in the end, nothing had changed. Nodding, the girl also talks about the planned visit to the temple, which was scheduled for today. Now is not the situation where the heroine can just go back to the Duke's house. The epidemic has returned to the Count's estate on the way to the Duke. Frozen with horror, the heroine asks what happened. It must have been something serious. Rius is not susceptible to the disease, but it is better for the beauty not to go, as it is dangerous there. Every second person dies, so the Empire must have sent reinforcements. It is not known whether this is an old disease or a new one. The Duchess is interrupted because the flow of words seems unstoppable. It has become a habit. The estate was closed, but the Emperor refused to provide any support. Rius looks at her sister sadly, as if to say that there wasn't much need for an explanation given what happened earlier. If you think about it, the Count was always at odds with the Emperor because he did a lot of bad things. Their family always produced worthy priests, but the Emperor was completely different. Now it becomes clear that the prince does not want the lady to enter the duchy because they refused support. Not a bad way to show His Majesty's true power. They don't want Ursia to get home, but even so, she can send a warning. I can't believe that the guy will continue to pretend that he is going to guard the temple in question. Everything is exactly as it seems at first glance, because this is the rare case. Virgo is going to the temple for a meeting today. All the aristocrats who heard about this were extremely interested, so they say that they come in an endless stream. Rius chuckles, but suggests that instead of staying in the palace, they move to the Duke's mansion in the capital. Nodding, the girl confirms his suspicions. The situation is gaining momentum, so it's best to sit it out for a while. The young man is not going to sit idle either, so very soon he wants to start looking for workers. Rumors about the leader and the princess became the most discussed. It could not help but become interesting whether the priest would make a saint out of the one abandoned by the oracle. The girl was eager to know what would happen at the meeting, but she couldn't guess anything, so she promised to tell her when she got back home. There was no reaction from the prince, and even if he called to meet due to schedules, nothing happened. It is strange that the young man left his ex-fiancée alone, but perhaps he is simply monitoring the situation in the castle. On the one hand, the mistress of the prophecy, Lurtella, made one terrible mistake, but that was not the worst. The oracle for some reason rejected the former heir to the throne, so the situation itself was gaining momentum. In the eyes of the people, the head of the temple chose the girl. After the banquet, Navia kept her head down. Because the girl hid, it was easier for the main character to investigate her relationship. Perhaps now thoughts are occupied with whether Ursia should be returned to the imperial palace or not. It is quite possible that this is true, but it becomes obvious that the family does not want the lady to be taken by the temple. The heroine gave a lot to the imperial family, trying for the common good, so they will not want to lose her. The easiest thing for the emperor would have been to make the princess the wife of the second Prince Alfred, who was almost her age. The hand squeezed the cup too hard, so it cracked. Apparently it was too fragile, so that's the excuse. If a man wants to intimidate the princess and the girl from the prophecy, he may well use a similar method. Lurtella, as the heir of prophecy, will bring safety and peace to the world. The Duchess, in her time as the prince's wife, will use her abilities and devote herself entirely to the empire. For His Majesty, this is the most ideal scenario one could imagine. If everything is as the sister said, then the brother is sure that becoming a saint will be very difficult. Asking the young man if he will go to the temple with her, the maiden rises. He refuses because he has other things to do. The boy hasn't been to the capital for a long time, so he needs to finish something. When his brother returns, he should bring a small dagger. My father had sent it before, but it had been thrown out with other unnecessary things. I didn't want to mention the truth. The blonde nods. He knows a great master, so he will make the order as quickly as possible. On top of all this, the beauty did not have a suitable uniform that would be comfortable. Asking his sister again, the young man tries to understand why she needs the uniform and what exactly she means. It turns out that the carriage has recently broken down, so we'll have to go by horse. The dress doesn't fit. There is nothing to be done, so we will have to go with the export provided by His Majesty. The heroine understands that this is the only way she can get away somewhere, but she decides to go first in order to become the one. Taking something out of his pocket, the prince holds out a blade wrapped in a dark leather sheath. This thing belongs to Rius, but he can use other weapons. No one knows what might happen to his sister there. It would have been nice to take Ash with me, but in the end that opportunity didn't arise. If there was such a concern, it would have been necessary to include a servant in the horse escort to keep an eye on things at all times. The prince wanted to do so, but they said that the duchy did not need men because they had already chosen everyone. They changed knights every month because they were afraid that the princess would bribe them. There was no choice, so all that was left was to prepare for the trip, which was supposed to take place very soon. The brother carefully places the necklace on her neck to highlight the heroine's beauty. The day that was supposed to happen was today, so everything had to be controlled. Asking about the completion of the preparations, the blonde asks to take care of everything while she is in the temple. Taking the beauty's hand, the man sighs heavily. It is clear that he is worried, as he has never been worried before. The escort, which has already been chosen, stands next to the horses right next to the entrance to the palace on the side. The people who are a few meters away from the princess are the eyes and ears of the emperor, which is embarrassing. It seems that 14 people are too many to accompany the duke's daughter to the temple. At first glance, it seems that the emperor cares, but this is not the case. A man with gray hair steps forward, bowing carefully. His name is Hiram Matilda, and he is the escort. This deputy from the squad seems unreliable, but gathering her courage, the beauty asks her brother to go about his business. The beauty will be perfectly fine as long as she is confident in her protection. Looking into her sister's eyes, Rius asks her to accompany him to the exit of the palace so that he can leave this place. People are whispering around. It is obvious that the aristocrats, having seen this scene, will again fawn on the princess. Addressing Ursia, the guy asks her to stay close to Hiram for her own safety. Looking into Sia's eyes, he asks where such confidence in safety lies next to him. This guy is the one the Duchess likes. It becomes obvious almost immediately. Mounting Matilda's horse, the girl orders them to move, so the horse gallops along the path into the distance. Just before leaving, Rius called out to Hiram to give him some personal instructions. The guy asked to break away from the rest of the guards and protect his sister until the last, so that she would be safe and sound. The blonde tried to object, but was interrupted, simply asking for the same thing again, as if it was important. The man trusts the guard, so he leaves his sister with him. The other knights look worse. Nodding in agreement, the young man promises that he will do everything possible and exactly as he was ordered. This was unknown to Sia herself. Almost closing her eyes from fatigue, the heroine looks at the trees. She will finally be able to talk to the priest. The conversation will turn to something important that we haven't been able to talk about for so long. Since the road was extremely boring, the Duchess asks Hiram if he knows her brother. They sparred several times. That was basically all they did together, so there was no point. People around are not giving me any peace. Discussing Lady Peasantry and the others right next to the road. You should put on a cape if you are uncomfortable. A little girl in the crowd waves her hand in greeting. It seems she is the only person without bad intentions. The princess smiles and waves back. She doesn't want to seem angry so as not to ruin everything. The baby's mother lights up with a smile just like the child and picks her daughter up in her arms to see more. This path leads the horse onto a forest road, so Matilda asks permission to speed up. The lady will be returning with her brother, so she asks for a separate horse. It is good to see people, but sitting behind the knight, the maiden harms her reputation. As the heroine thought, she would have to go back on a horse, but now they had arrived at the temple. The knights standing at the entrance point their spears forward, causing the pair to stop, just like the horse. Matilda feels angry, but does not have time to say anything because the princess pushes her away. The men standing nearby immediately become embarrassed because they understand who exactly is standing in front of them. Quickly apologizing, they open the gates to the temple, saying that they did not immediately recognize the arriving guest. The hair color, which was visible from several kilometers away, indicates the high status of the heroine. The maiden left the palace only once with the prince under cover, but then a huge fuss arose around them, and they were forbidden to leave. Hair was a hindrance to everything because it was noticed, but in moments like these it was a privilege. As the lady enters the palace, she follows the corridor ahead, leaving the knight behind her to be first. The people around prove how much they respect the duchess who has arrived at the temple. Before the girl became the crown princess and the new mistress of the prophecy, the temple and the palace were on bad terms. Matilda escorts the beauty almost to the very door, and then promises that she will go and do what she promised to do earlier. Left alone with the priests, the maiden speaks of how pleased she is to meet them. Bowing his head, the young man says that they all waited together for the princess to arrive. Initially, the temple was snow white and clean, without a single decoration, which over time almost never appeared. Turning around to ask the princess for her opinion, the guy also adds that all the changes were made by His Highness. The place was for worshipping God, so it had to exude sincerity without ulterior motives. Looking at the sculptures and figures that were displayed in the corridor, one could not help but agree that it was truly beautiful. Interrupting the tour, which had dragged on a bit, the priest points to the door where one must go. In the room, on the sofa, which was also snow white, sits the leader, who is smiling and happy about the meeting. Walking forward, the lady bows, saying that she has come at the call of heaven. Greeting in return is also considered correct, so the man responds in kind. Sitting down, the beauty reminds them that they are not strangers, and therefore there is no need for such formality. It's true, but the girl still wants to say a lot, so the guy is all ears. Looking at the young man, the lady asks why he decided to spread such rumors. Not understanding the problem, the guy asks if the heroine liked it. The rumor that the leader had noticed the girl caused the imperial family to be in a state of agitation. Also, with what happened, Ursia's honor, which she had not hoped for, was restored. Smiling, Azriel asks if the Duchess is not satisfied, but she tries to keep a straight face so as not to be caught. The man offers to do the same in the future. She will not regret choosing him. The priest says that all this is only for the princess, but it remains a one-sided opinion because no one asks the Duchess herself. The man asks in surprise how it was possible that such a lady lived as a puppet all this time. Frowning, the heroine asks directly what they are saying about her. The meeting did not go according to plan from the very beginning. Apparently, the lady does not behave the way the boss wants, so he shows this with a clear example. The lady also needs to stand firm, so as she stands up, she says that she will leave if the man continues in the same spirit. The guy's hand stops the heroine, placing his warm palm right on top. Looking into the eyes of the young lady, the guy notices that she is always in too much of a hurry, even if she has no reason for it. The smile appears completely unnoticed. It is pleasant to realize that a man needs Ursia as much as she needs him. In this case, the princess can be more generous. They will put aside unnecessary things and move on to the most important thing. The blonde nods in agreement. He, too, has no motive to end the meeting. The girl wanted to tell something urgent that concerned both of them, so it was worth getting to the most important thing. Nodding, the blonde is once again convinced that there is no point in talking about something else when there is no time anyway. Starting the same melody again, the young man asks if the beauty has ever thought about becoming his. Even if there is no divine power, the very fact of the saint's existence has great symbolic meaning. Like the head, the lady shows her face only on holidays. By this we can understand that the young man is asking the lady to become his wife, but there is another meaning to it. The rumor that the maiden would become a saint may have been true and not just a hoax to help the princess. For the vast majority of the empire's aristocrats, marriage was a kind of deal that they did not want to break. The deal is usually viewed by both parties, so the lady does not know what to do or what to say if she refuses. The heroine cannot respond properly because then there will simply be a lot of problems. The beauty still has options, but it looks like the blonde has taken all the initiative into his own hands. When the enemy takes the initiative, you need to hide your weaknesses even better and not reveal them. The lady collects her thoughts and asks His Holiness if he understands the significance of the maiden. There was no way the blonde wouldn't know all the intricacies of what he was about to set up himself. The princess says this because she feels that the young man is missing the significance of the act. The position of saint was not an official position until now and was always vacant unless something important happened. The priest is going to put the former bride of the crown prince from the castle in such an important place. Nodding again, the man says that he knows this very well. He doesn't need reminders. Ursia Pasantry has lost all the moves she had saved. Her gaze drops to the floor. If everything goes as it is now, then Leva will be obliged to bend the knee before her ex-fiancé. Miss Lurtella, in turn, climbs up the road that the heroine paved with her own efforts. The virgin will also be obliged to bow her proud head before the heir, who, frightened by the changes from the oracle, broke all agreements. If a lady agrees to marry a priest, she will have a status that does not require her to bend her knee to the man who used her. If a blonde can give something like that without anything in return, it should be more than enough. Bowing her head, the lady thinks about something, just for a second, and then asks about the question that is spinning in her subconscious. A man must get something in return, because there are far more people who want to take the place of the head of the church's partner than there are places for the empress. Even the emperor is wary of this position. A person with such a status does not need to perform duties as an empress, and for the people the best option is to follow the church, so the man agrees to this. Even if you turn the entire empire upside down, or even search in other countries, it will be difficult to find such a person. The current head of the church does not seem incompetent, but for some reason he wants to achieve something else. The guy chuckles. He doesn't know why the girl thinks that nothing will work out. In the end, the young man will receive the most valuable thing, Ursia. He gently strokes her hair. The maiden opens her mouth, which had crawled down on its own from the surprise she felt. Nothing good will come of His Holiness getting this. It can't be strange. A blonde man can get a lot of things even when he is close to the Duke's daughter. Without even asking, the young lady knew the answer herself. If Azriel can make such a woman his, there is no way to refuse. The girl does not consider herself some kind of thing, so if she belongs to a young man, he will become only hers. Adjusting the brooch on his chest, the man nods. If his beloved wants it so much, then it's normal. His Holiness had something else important to say, so collecting his thoughts, he begins. Approaching the closet, the young man takes out a letter from one of the drawers, but not in a regular wrapping paper, but in black paper. There is a will of the previous head of the church there, so the beauty is, of course, interested in what is said there. The heroine nods. She will remain silent about everything she hears here despite what she learns. Perhaps the young lady already guesses its contents, but still promises to keep quiet about everything. Noticing the confusion and confidence on the girl's face, the guy says that the content is a little related to her. Most of the wills of the heads of the church expressed hope for peace and stability in magic, but the last one simply wasn't published. There was only the fact that the previous head of the church kissed the girl on the forehead and gave her a blessing, but that was all. Except for what happened, the lady had no more one-on-one meetings with him, so the interest became even greater. It is better to hear about it now than in prison, so the beauty expects the contents to be read to her. This applies to the princess, even if the man wanted to lock her in his room for complete safety. Without giving the girl a chance to object, the young man begins. The oracle was wrong. The words that the maiden would bring peace and stability as an heir were a lie from the very beginning. The lady jumps up from her seat, grabbing the edge of the tabletop with her hands, which helped her hold on. In reality, things were much worse. The dizziness was now making itself felt, letting him know that the lie had been revealed. It would be better if the oracle changed overnight, and Lurtella was the one the man was talking about. You don't want to believe it, but the blonde man standing nearby carefully takes the beauty's hands away from her face, asking her to calm down. The contents of the oracle were wrong, but that does not mean that the existence itself is a lie. The lie was in something else. The maiden should not have been the prince's wife, or she would not have been able to bring peace and tranquility to the empire. The girl left the place of the prince's bride and held on to the thought that she had been deceived and that the lie would soon be revealed. But perhaps the problem was precisely in her. The content of the received oracle turned out to be a lie that would have to be accepted, even if it was painful and unpleasant. Azriel lowers his head sadly, watching the throwing of the princess, who now did not see the real truth in her life. If all this is not true and is a fake, then the young lady may be happy, but it will not show. No one ever knew what the person who would bring peace and stability to this world would look like. To ensure peace and stability in the empire, the emperor used the maiden as a tool. Tearing off the hand that the priest was holding, the lady jumps back. Ursia is sure to the last that she was not used, and this is not true. It's strange that the young lady still thinks that way. After everything that happened, she should have realized long ago that she was of no importance. The little girl was locked in the palace and was forbidden to go outside just to enjoy her childhood. Even if the path that the heroine took was not the one she was supposed to take, she was still forced to follow it. The emperor was the one who strictly demanded to exceed his capabilities, so this could not be considered anything other than the use of free force. If this is not true, then the blonde should think again, and maybe not just once, about what was done to her. It seems the man misunderstood, because that's how all aristocrats are. Even if it's the wrong road, most would agree. What is clear is that the king never demanded anything that the beauty could not do. Frowning, the young man tries to understand why the princess is defending the emperor who used her. Sighing heavily, the lady corrects herself again, because she meant something completely different. The heroine always had enough ability to complete all the tasks set before her. Strong self-confidence literally clouded the eyes with a veil that interfered. Turning towards the window, the lady suggests coming closer to look at something together. The clock tower was something that was noticeable from several kilometers away due to its size. It was peasantry who ordered its construction and designed everything. It is not a luxury, so the young man is not at all sure that it was done for good. Aristocrats don't know, but for ordinary people it's a luxury item. Subjects don't have watches, so to arrange a meeting, they look at the sun. The Virgin built it right in the middle of the city. Turning back, the lady smiles because she always wanted to help ordinary people. When the tower was being built, the girl thought only about the fact that it was being built only because she wanted it, and no one else. Everyone was against the construction because it was luxury, so why build it in the center of the capital? When the lady wanted it, everyone shut their mouths. Everything the princess did had a plan, so she was not considered useless. Everyone who disagreed agreed. All this meant that Ursia created her place herself, literally pushing forward. At first, the princess really thought that she would be used as a pawn of the emperor, who would take advantage of this, but it turned out not to be so. When the beauty built the tower, she certainly had a clear plan that no one could surpass. Once the tower became a local landmark, revenues grew and tourism increased, so it paid off. The emperor and the crown prince turned their backs on the girl when the prophecy changed, but she had learned too much. The couple would never understand how much the position of crown princess had given the girl, even if it was now a thing of the past. The priest smiles as he gets up. He thought that for a man like Pisanthria, power was not so important. The power itself, of course, had no meaning, but the sweet taste of it was that very important element. Wiping crumbs from his mouth, the young man chuckled again. For someone who talks about power, the girl is too selfless. The girl looks like this, but for those who did not cross a certain line, she was a benevolent empress of the future. That's what everyone wanted.